Okay, call to order the July 5th, 2023 City Council of East Bethel work meeting. And I'd like to add one thing to the agenda, and that's just a brief discussion of capstone as item 6. But anybody want to make a motion to approve our agenda?
I'll approve the agenda with the addition.
Okay. Second. We have a motion and seconded to approve our agenda. All in favor, say aye.
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 None opposed. Okay, I want to just keep things interesting. I thought I'd do the agenda in reverse order, basically. Starting with capstone, I see it's on the agenda for Monday, and I'm just wondering, is this the same presentation that we had at that special meeting on the 21st of June, as far as you know?
It's essentially the same presentation, although it has to be held before city council as a public hearing on the concept plan.
Yeah. So, but it's not scheduled as a public hearing on Monday, is it?
I thought, no, it's not, I'm sorry, it's not scheduled as a public hearing.
What I'd like to propose, is that static a problem, or
No, it's,
Little feedback.
are you radioactive, Jack, or what's going on there?
somebody's got a phone here that's too close, I believe.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. What I was wondering is, could we just, put it on, what day is it, the 21st or
Be the 24th.
24th? Just put it on the 24th and do the public hearing at the same time. Because we have we have Nexus on Monday night, and I think that could be lengthy, could be quick, I don't know, but I just thought I'd throw that out there. Anybody have any thoughts one way or the other about it?
I'm good with it.
I think it's a good idea. It's fine.
Brian?
Sure.
Sure. What are your thoughts, Jack?
I don't know, again, it's hard to tell how long the Nexus thing will take.
Yeah.
How critical is that to the schedule, Aaron?
I'd have to go back. I can run and take a look real quick. You guys wanna bear with me for a second?
To be honest, I was really curious, why was a special meeting necessary? I never did understand that.
The special meeting was to kind of get everybody briefed and a little bit of background on this, so when we did have the concept plan, it would cut down on the time required, it would give you some just basic information on it. Or if you had any other questions, you could develop those and present those when the actual concept plan was presented.
Well, I checked the ordinances, and it's to call a special meeting, not an emergency meeting, but a special meeting requires the mayor and one council member, and I know Brian called the meeting, but who is the council member who?
Actually, to call a special meeting, the mayor themselves can actually call it, or two council members can call a special meeting.
No, it says in the ordinance, well, I read it, it was a mayor and one council member, or two council members. Anyway, I just thought it was kind of an odd thing.
I've always known as a mayor can call it a special
Well, I'm
meeting
just
or
telling
two
you what I
council
read in
members.
the ordinances. I'm open to being wrong, and I'm not, I don't claim to be perfect, but I just read it not long ago.
We,
But whatever, but I just wondered, I just wondered, I didn't bring it up that night, because I didn't want to bring it up in front of the capstone guys, but it just seemed unnecessary to me, to be honest. But I don't want to get sidetracked on that,
if,
but anyway.
if we could, it might be better just to keep that on for the 10th. The reason I say is that there's a lot of things that they have to do. One of them is this EAW, which is a 90-day process, so after the 10th, we wouldn't be hearing anything back from them to probably.
Well, do you know if have they done anything? They got a fair amount of feedback, public feedback at the planning commission meeting. I was happy to see so many people turn out. Have they modified anything since before? Have they told you anything?
No, we're gonna sit down with them tomorrow, and
no.
they're gonna go over those things that they modified, and we're gonna suggest a few other things,
Well,
so.
why don't you let all of us know what came out of that? and
Okay.
if- Otherwise, you know, I'd advocate we just put it on the 24th and have a public hearing at the same time. I think
Yeah,
it's fine to have a
yeah.
public hearing at the city
Yeah.
council level.
And let us meet with them tomorrow, we can talk to them, and
Yeah.
if they feel it's crucial, then we can recommend that we continue it. If not, then we can go ahead and pull that
Yeah.
from the agenda and
Yeah.
reschedule then.
Okay, let's do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Jack, on that subject, oh, a little loud here. I had heard something that we were trying to push some of these through because of time constraints, and the 60-day rule came up. But the caveat to that is we actually have 120 days, because if you, on the 60-day rule, you have to file for the next 60 days within that 60-day,
Yeah.
before the first 60 days expire.
Yeah,
So some of this stuff
you,
doesn't necessarily have to go immediately, because, thinking that it's a 60-day rule thing, because we actually have 120 days.
yeah, you can actually extend it. It's not that we're trying to push it through, but developers have schedules, and if we can help them accommodate to meet that, fine. If we can't, we won't.
Oh, I wasn't talking about any particular one, I'm
Yeah.
just, had heard something and wanted to clarify, because if I remember right, Mark Beerling kind of cleared that up at one of the meetings back in 2012.
No, and this definitely falls outside that 60-day rule limit.
Okay.
Okay, anybody else want to comment on that topic? All right, well, Jim, you're the genesis of the code violation complaint form. So can you speak to that topic?
Yeah. The reason I brought this up and I want to change this is because on a lot of complaints that we've been hearing are anonymous calls. I feel that if we change this to a form and the people have a complaint, I'd like to see them come in, fill out the complaint. Actually, you could fill it out online. Come in, bring a driver's license, proof of ID, and sign it in front of staff, whoever's here. That way my thoughts with all that is, a lot of people at the heat of the moment say they're mad at a resident neighbor. Neighbor did something that really ticked you off or whatever. And, oh, I'm gonna call the city right away and complain. Well, if they know if they can call the city and complain and there's no consequences on it, they'll do it every time. If they know that they have to come in and sign and show proof of residence and everything else, they'll probably think about it and go, you know, it was not that big a deal. So I think we can eliminate a lot of these complaints that are anonymous, save you guys work, so you don't have to follow up with all that. At least if it's a written complaint, then we have to take action on that.
I don't have any problems with the written complaint, but we do not take anonymous calls. They have to identify their name and their address, but we do not release that information.
No, I understand that. But just for an example, then, when you brought that up, then, is with that mechanic guy, that at the meeting, that had his own business in there, and you said that there was like 7 anonymous complaints. So you have record of all those complaints?
No, we don't keep a record, but we
See,
have,
that's what I mean. This will keep a record.
and that's true. That's why I don't have any issues with that.
Okay, all right. Because what I did is I just wrote out a few different things. Actually, East Bethel's had a couple of complaint forms in the past. I looked up the one that we have right now online, and to me, it's pretty vague. Not much there.
No, it's,
I think some of the ones you had in the past were a lot better. So actually, I'd like to use this one if we can. And I just want to add these few things to it and have you guys fill that in.
okay.
And then, because there's a lot more room on there than this other one that we had, this one, I'm thinking you can do it with this one here. And then also, when you do that, instead of, this is a question, I don't know, can we present it to the attorney at the next council meeting, and he can look at it right there and tell us if it's good or not? So
Sure
we don't
can.
violate
Yeah,
anything?
sure can.
That way there, because I mean, we're paying them $400 to sit here. I just soon have them approve that so we can vote on it and put it in.
Well, assuming he will do that.
Okay, but I
Yeah.
mean, he should, I would think, right?
Well, I can't speak for the attorney. He may say I
Well,
have to
we're
go
paying
back
him.
and check it out, so.
We're paying him, you can speak for him.
Well,
okay,
as
that's
long as we're not releasing the information, we could put the stuff in a file. And if the same person continually is filing the same complaint, you can go, well, now is this really justified? Or is this guy just got, I can't honestly, I need to think of something politically correct here.
Right,
This guy just got it out for him. Because I know there's probably some of that.
sure. That's why I say if the people know that they have to come in and do this, a lot of times they're gonna think about.
That's
"It's
like
no
a
big
cooling
deal,
off
I'm
period.
done." Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, even on the way here, 'cause they could go, do I really wanna go through with this? It's just a thought, I think we can maybe get rid of a lot of complaints we don't need.
What's your thoughts?
So, one item, Jack, I believe you'd be able to email those forms over to the city attorney and he would be able to have, write up with notes if need be at the next council meeting or beforehand.
That's a good idea.
The two you mentioned, show proof of residency, is that needed to make a complaint, or can anybody, non-resident, say somebody from Ham Lake or Andover, make a complaint to City Hall?
Well, that's a question that the attorney would have to answer. I know that we accept comments from non-residents in public forums, but whether you have to be a resident to make a complaint, I would think you'd need to be a
I would
resident.
think
But
so.
whether we could legally require that or not would have to be determined by the attorney's opinion.
Well, I don't know why we wouldn't have to require it.
Right,
I mean, that way, Jack, it's gonna filter out some of the crap.
exactly.
It'd be easier for you guys, cause if you pull up a file and you say, well, Jesus, this guy's called in how many times here?
Oh, well, one concern could be if it's a business member filing a complaint.
Oh,
They may have their business in East Bethel, but they live elsewhere.
Well, I
oh,
think
see
they
what
could be
you're saying.
either a resident or a property owner would be,
Or,
Yeah,
That'd be fine too,
or if they're,
listed as property owner.
well, if they're leasing a
or,
building.
or business operator.
Well, why don't we
in
give
East
it to Eric and see what
Yeah.
he comes up
There's-
with?
Bethel. All right.
Good points.
But otherwise, I have no issues with having a form.
I move that we have staff do that.
So the recommendation on this point, sorry to steal your thunder on this important part of the agenda, is staff requests authorization to prepare a code violation complaint form for city attorney review and presentation to council, right?
correct.
Anybody wanna move that we approve it? or-
We
We
can,
can't at a work meeting.
we just give direction.
Oh, that's right. All right, well,
So if
you're
nobody,
directed.
So directed.
if nobody has any objections
All right.
to giving staff that direction, then staff can take that under advisement.
No, I don't hear any objections.
We'll get that out to Eric tomorrow for his review and comment.
Just tell them we want a discount on that. Don't stretch it out.
Okay,
you.
on then item number 5 on our agenda, excuse me, now, item number 4 was Cedarwood expansion proposal. And I labored through this material 2.5 times, and, I'll be darned if I see a proposal in there. It says staff is requesting city council review the proposal. It's just a list of considerations and problems and stuff, and my bottom line sense was that, until Continental Communities Management has a sit-down with the Met Council, there's not a whole lot
Yeah.
to figure out or talk about, is there?
Well, the real question is, do we want to allow this? And if we do, then what's the best approach legally to ensure that we're in compliance with everything? We've talked to Eric. Eric thinks we can do it because they're requesting an expansion within their own property.
But how could you not have a conditional use permit that can be located of all things.
Well, this was done in 1974, so somewhere.
Well, yeah, but it's not 1874.
Well,
You
I-
think you
yeah,
could find it somewhere?
Yeah, I can't speak to what happened before 2006.
I mean,
so,
something
yeah.
that important, you know?
But I don't know, we were never able to locate that. I think the major question is this something we want to discuss to allow to happen, the expansion of the trailer court within their existing property? The Met Council things, if we answer that question, then the other thing is, are they willing to comply with the Met Council directives as far as connection fees if they can't hook up to utilize their own system?
They weren't willing to do that. If you recall, Jack, in probably 2011, when that came up and some information had come out that one of the old city administrators had made a deal with them about the connections, hooking them up to the system, and they had made some kind of a deal. I'd have to get the paperwork. But the guy came in and he pleaded his case, but then we had taken a look at the pond that's out there, and that's not necessarily in the best of shape. And for some reason, it just dropped off. But even back in 2011, we said, well, you're within the sewer water district, because it was my understanding that it went down to 181st. Well, he's definitely within that envelope. And that, okay, then you're gonna have to hook up all these trailers. And that didn't happen. Now, whether it's because people were new, on the council knew that we didn't pursue that, but I recall in the last couple of weeks going through a bunch of papers that I've got at home, and that was
Now you know where all the records are, Jack.
part of that was the discussion. It was right around the same time that we had the discussion where the contractor had walked off the site for 45 days and then came back to get it amended so that they could continue. It's right in that time frame.
I think that's, your recollection is real good. The other thing that I recollect on that was the only people that were required to hook up initially were the businesses. The trailer court was exempted from that, but it was always anticipated that they would hook up. We have new owners now. They would like to hook up if there's a way it can be done, but that's gonna have to be between them and the Met Council. We've talked to the Met Council, and the Met Council has said we're gonna have to charge a SAC unit for each trailer space. So that would mean they'd pay about $1 million in fees. But they do have a deferred payment plan, and I don't know all the details.
Yeah, we're familiar with it.
We didn't get that kind of break.
We'll go easy if you plan to pay. That's easy payment plan.
So, but the question is really on this new extension, or the new expansion they want to make, do they have the capacity within their own treatment plant to handle this?
Has there been an evaluation of that at all? And
No,
who would do it?
That would
The
be,
Met Council?
no, that would be the MPCA would have to give them a ruling on
I
that.
thought back in 2011, it was found that couldn't, because I think they were looking at expansion back then. And at that time, we were looking at running a road behind them and then out to 181st. And it was found that pond, if you look at it on GIS, it's not very big. And if I recall, it wouldn't fit the capacity to go any bigger because it was kind of holding on by a string with what they already had going in there.
Well, to my knowledge, we've never seen any information on that. The pond that they have is twice as big as the pond was up at Castle Towers. So
Right.
it is a fairly large lagoon, and they serve essentially the same number, maybe a few more customers than Castle Towers did. Plus, they have a secondary pond area that they've never used. But the big question is, that plant was built in '74, I believe. The plant at Castle Towers was permitted for 110,000 gallons a day. So we generally had about 30,000 gallons a day that we were treating up there. But the question is how efficient is that plant now? It may be permitted for a certain flow, but it may have to have certain upgrades to add any new customers on it.
Well, the
Yeah,
one
we-
up at
yeah.
Castle Towers was, MPCA had told us either we redo it, and that's why the force main got ran up there. It was to service Castle Towers, decommission that plant because the big tank that was up there was being held pretty much with tape and fiberglass and whatever. And one of the crap beds up there was failing, and so it was either we run a force main up and decommission that, or within, oh, what the heck was it? I think within 10 years, we'd be putting about $5 million into it.
Yeah.
And so we ran that force main up.
Well, the force main was put up there because if you recall, we saved about $4 to $5 million in the bond funds on the construction costs because we redesigned the water treatment facility. We took it from an osmosis system to
Right.
just a general treatment system. What we wanted to do was take that savings and put it back toward the payment of the bonds. But the way that whole thing was structured, you couldn't do that because this was stimulus money. So they said we had to spend it on infrastructure or turn it back in. But we still owed whatever it was. We had to do it one way. We weren't off the hook with anything. So that's when we looked at running the force main up to Castle Towers because we knew we were gonna have some expenditures up there to get that plant, taken care of for the future. And we wanted to get out of the sewer business too. That's the last thing we wanna be in is the sewer treatment business. So that's why we ran the force main up there, and we estimated, I think at that time, it was gonna cost approximately $1 million, and this is at least $1 million to upgrade that facility. Plus, then we're gonna have to keep it operating for who knows how long. And the operating cost would total over the 20 years would be about the same thing, so we were looking at spending at least $2 million to keep that plant running and upgrade it. We could run the force main up there with money that was not out of the budget. We had to spend it anyway. We couldn't turn it back in. So we used that to run the force main, and that got us out of the sewer business up there.
Well, memories are different, I
Yeah.
guess. But to segue out there just for a second, is there any way that we could get staff to put out, I don't remember the size of that force main. Is there some way by the next meeting we could maybe figure that out?
It's to-
Figure what out?
The size of that pipe is to what the capacity from going up there, because there's always talk about hooking things into it. And again, my memory serves me that we were under the assumption if a company wanted to hook up to the force main, it would be about 75,000 at the time because they'd have to dig it and then they'd have to put pumps in to hook up to force whatever down there,
You need a lift station.
Yeah.
lift station.
Well, this is what I was getting at. Maybe I didn't say it too artfully, but there's so many ifs, whats, therefores, and what, it's just it's a black hole. And instead of us spending our time, why don't we get some answers before we make a decision one way or the other, whether we wanna go forward with it? Because right now, we don't have enough, I don't see it. I don't see we have enough information to really make an intelligent decision about whether we want it or not, or just keep it the way it is, or let it expand, or whatever. It's just,
Yeah.
it's all kinds of questions.
Oh.
Am I missing something, or what?
No, you're not missing anything.
Well, I might be missing something.
Well, but this is more
miss stuff
primary.
all the time.
The secondary part of it. Number one, I think, these questions don't even come into account unless we say, no, we don't want you to expand on.
Well, I
your-"
mean, technically, they don't even have a conditional use permit.
Well, they're gonna have to get a new one, is what they're gonna
And
have
then
to
they're
do.
talking about nonconformities on top of that. It's like, trying to make a
And-
octagonal
yeah.
peg fit in a round hole,
And there's some zoning issues that have to be
Yeah.
resolved, but these things have to be resolved first. As far as getting answers from the Met Council and MPCA, we can get answers from them, but I know we pretty well got it from Met Council what they're gonna have to do. They're gonna have to pay the SAC fees. They can get.
They're not interested in negotiating some bulk
No.
rate or something.
No, not, there was a program about 8 years ago where there was 3 large mobile home parks in the metro area that they wanted to get hooked up. Village Green was one of them. When we brought Village Green down here and had Met Council present their proposal to them, and they could have gotten connected, they would have gotten maybe like about a 50% discount on their SAC fees. But they declined to do that, said they couldn't afford it, so. The new owners, when they took over, 3 years ago, have shown an interest in connecting, and they still show an interest in connecting. But in order for them to do that, we've got to tell them they can do this expansion or they can't do it. If they don't, then all the other questions are moot. I guess it depends on which one you want to look at first.
Yeah, so essentially the first decision is, do we want to look at this and consider the expansion? If we do, then these are the questions that are right in front of us right now.
Yeah.
If we don't want to consider the expansion, then all those questions.
Well, actually,
to the point.
do we want to allow them to continue operating? Because they don't have a conditional use permit. I mean, right now,
Well-
it's an illegal operation technically.
That may be a question for the city attorney.
Yeah,
Yeah.
oh, yeah, definitely. But that's just one of these questions I'm mentioning, that we got more questions than, you know, a normal situation where you're calling for a decision.
If you want to table this, we can go back and try to find some of these answers and bring it back and then maybe get a little clearer
Well, I don't
picture
know.
of what direction we want to go with this.
I don't know what else we can do. How do you make it, I'm anti-mobile home or something? I mean, that, you know, if you want, you know, I mean, that's what it comes down to, whether you want mobile homes or not. Otherwise, we don't know anything.
Well, we
so,
can't make any motions tonight anyway.
yeah.
Well, no,
But it'd be worth looking back, and I'll see if I can find the information that I still have.
Well, yeah, look for that conditional use permit while you're at it.
I don't recall them having that.
It'd also be a question for Mr. Larson that if we can't find the CUP, are they still in compliance? Are they not? How do we bring them into compliance if they aren't?
Aaron, was there something in the minutes though that indicated that there was a CUP approved for this at one time?
I've researched back to 1957 when East Bethel
Became a
village
city.
became a village and then has moved forward. I've researched the changes in mobile home to manufacturing ordinance all the way along the way up to 1979 is as far as I've gotten. New management indicates that they are operating under the terms that this came into existence in the 70s. So if our ordinance did change, they would be what's called existing non-conforming, and I included some of that language in the packet for tonight. I have had a conversation with our city attorney. Although
If I
it is
could just interrupt a moment,
Yes.
is that the 2-year condition where they can at most operate for 2 years? I was reading those ordinances earlier
so
today.
some of the
They are fascinating, by the way, yeah.
some of the conditions within there had to do with street upgrades, setback locations,
Yeah.
number of parks, the
Yeah.
lot sizes had to be conforming. Those were the non-conforming
Mm-hmm.
parts that they were given 2 years to conform with.
Mhm.
Didn't actually say that they had to conform with any other standard in that 2-year time frame. But it did state that they needed to, or our ordinance says that they need to have a conditional use permit to operate. So that's one major hurdle
Yeah,
that we need to
that's
accomplish.
the big one. yeah.
My conversation with the city attorney indicated that if we would allow the expansion, a separate conditional use permit would need to be granted for the new
New.
park, if you will, and a second conditional use permit should be applied for the existing park. Combining the two into one conditional use permit was not favorable because conditions in the existing park with all the nonconformities and conditions in the new park existing, you
Yeah.
can't have two separate sections of law or rules applying to one conditional use.
It's essentially two different developments on one parcel.
Correct.
Yeah.
On top of that, our ordinance now reads that manufactured home parks can't be located, or can only be located in the B1 business district. Both of our manufactured home parks in East Bethel are currently located in an R2 zoning district.
So they need a variance.
Well, we would have to look
Or
at
change something.
potentially changes, however, we can't, what's called spot zoning and just change a zoning condition right around a trailer park to make it, or a manufactured home park, to make the zoning match the applicant's condition.
But can we do a zoning text amendment?
So, after my conversation with the city attorney, there are some languages in state statute, which I put in the report, that allow for local units of government to enact ordinances to essentially get around all of these non-conforming situations by allowing the non-conformity to exist in a zone which it shouldn't be in. So, there are many, many layers to this onion, if you will. And if you peel one back, there's another one, peel another one back, there's another. We didn't even talk about the long-term comprehensive plan, which might need to be amended as a result of this, which again, relies on the Met Council's opinion a little bit. And so, as I said, the onion just keeps getting peeled, and then we find the next set of hurdles, and then we get through those, and then there's another set and another set. So, I think to Jack's question or Jack's point, the sewer water connection might be a secondary concern over all of the existing statute stuff that we need to accomplish before we can even get to the point where they could conceivably move another manufactured home in and even think about connecting it to sewer or water. So the proposal.
Well, no,
like
my thing
Continental-
with the Met Council, or maybe I misspoken, it was the MPCA, but the existing, their own private sewer system, there was a question about whether that's even functioning properly, as is.
Yeah.
I mean, right now, without any additions or anything. We don't know the answer to that
I
either,
don't know
do
the
we?
answer to that, no.
You don't?
I do
Yeah.
not. That wasn't part of my research, but I'd be more than happy to pick up the phone and make some phone calls. So,
But that's just another
essentially,
question.
a
we
whole
don't know the
nother
answer to.
layer or level that would need to be explored. So,
Yeah.
their proposal came, and we decided instead of, letting them fill out an application and doing all of those things, that we would get the flavor for, if you will, your guys' opinion on, do we want to even tear the first layer off the onion? Or if we do, what's the next layer, and how do we manage that? And we'll need the city attorney's opinion along the way, every step here, so that we
Yeah.
can make sure that this is done correctly.
I think at the very least, we should at least figure out how to bring them into compliance and whether we want to pursue it after that
And
is, we can discuss it at that point.
They might be opening a can of worms.
And,
Oh, it's a big can of worms, yeah. Okay.
and part of this, we could bring this before city council and get definite, approval, that if we pursue this, then they would have to furnish an escrow amount to pay for any added attorney's fees.
What are you guys' thoughts?
I wouldn't have a problem, I guess, I wouldn't have a problem with the expansion, but I just think the hurdles that are before them, yeah, I don't know if it'd be fiscally possible to do.
If it
So-
makes sense from a business standpoint, you mean?
Well, I mean, the trailer park's already there, and most new trailers now are pretty nice looking. If you go up to Isani, I mean, they're getting kind of the junky ones out and the nice ones in. But boy,
The only
come in
difficulty,
compliance.
Mr. Mayor and Council, that we have in this one is the land that they planned on expanding to is land that they already own, and it was part of the land that's non-conforming. So that's a sticky question on whether that non-conformity exists on bare land that they already owned and never expanded to, or if that is looked at in the eyes separately because it was never built on or never established. But that park, that land that was there was always part of the land, they just never expanded that far.
well, if they've never used it, it's still virgin soil, correct? I mean, in a sense, because they haven't, how can it be non-conforming? It'd be like saying the land out in front of the city hall is non-conforming, or maybe part of my yard because I haven't been using it. Maybe my house is non-conforming, but that piece of property I haven't used, why would that change? Now, if they went to do something, maybe it would be different. That's, some questions are it's out of my pay grade.
Mine as well, that's why every step of the way.
I
we're
guess
gonna
what
need
I'm
some
looking
guidance.
for is a recommendation. I get that there's a whole lot of worms in the can, but what's the recommendation for how we proceed? I don't see
Right.
it myself.
I think that's up to us. Just one question, Aaron.
Well, what do you
Um,
recommend?
One question, Aaron. Do you know if there had ever been a ghost plat or anything concerning this called undeveloped land that is still part of the same parcel that was at any time approved by the council for, expansion or
Ghost roads,
ghost plat?
Yeah.
That,
I've searched everything I can through the county, electronic record system, so short of me driving over to the county tax assessor and office and, looking through all the property files that they may have at the county, what I can find online dates back fairly early too. Most of it is written record, but there is no plat, if you will, for any, expansion or proposal or anything like that. I can't
Okay.
find anything.
all right, because if there was, this would be a totally different argument that the city would not like to be in. But back to the question of what will we do? I think at the very least, because our codes now state that it needs a CUP, it can still be a legal non-conforming, but we should figure out at least how to get them a CUP or find the CUP or whatever needs to be done at that point to bring it into compliance with those ordinances. And once then that it's legal non-conforming compliant, then we can really have a discussion if we want to take it any further.
Is it possible for conditional use permits to have a sunset provision?
No, no, they stick with the actual parcel
So it can't
or
be,
parcel
we'll
ID.
grant you a CUP, but it's just to prevent undue harm to a bunch of people who have to relocate their homes or whatever.
Not from my
So it's
educational
either on
history
and off, it's an
does
on and
that,
off
yeah,
switch.
right.
And
No,
that-
I'm thinking the conditions could have changed, it could have, I've looked, I think there's 4 parcels or 5 parcels of land that make up that entire manufactured home park. I've researched each individual parcel as back as far as it could go through the county record system. I cannot locate anything connected to any one of those parcels, in terms of conditional use or, an agreement or something between the city or the village or, I haven't made it to, looking through council minutes around the dates of the ordinance changes to see if that forced the existing park into, coming in to reach compliance or anywhere around the time frame. But my assumption is it's not there, but I will continue to look because I have other questions that need to be answered for the existing park as they continue through their remodel. They're working currently through nonconformities and placing trailers where they're not necessarily in conformance either. So we've got some things to answer for them, so.
Yeah, it'd be easier just to come up with a new CUP than trying to say that we can't find a CUP, so everybody has to leave. Getting trailer parks shut down are very difficult. I believe it was St. Anthony that just went through that with one of the large trailer parks, and there are many laws that protect closure of a trailer park. Now, I don't think that's a road that we want to go down as well.
Well, okay, the reason I reversed the order is I was hoping we can get through these 2 things really quickly, and then we could go right into the budget, which is the primary focus for the night for me, anyway. So who wants to try to cap the ends of this conversation?
Well, I want to point out that when we see something like this, at least when I see something like this, and all these questions that are coming up right now would come up exactly when we saw it during a council meeting, and I have no choice but to table things like this. At least I would vote for that. You know what I mean? It seems like we're not seeing everything that needs to be seen before we can make a decision. And general public is gonna start thinking these guys are tabling everything. It's tabling it because there's key issues that are not here for us to even consider. Yeah, you know
Yeah,
what I'm saying?
I certainly understand what you're saying, but this is why we have it at the work meeting level, because on this one, we're looking for as many answers as you are. There's, like Aaron said, there's a lot of layers to this onion. When you peel it back, it leads to other things. We're just trying to get some directions if this is something we want to pursue, or we just tell continental communities that, you know, we can't allow the expansion and that's it. But if it's something we want to pursue, there's still a lot of questions to answer, and that's why we didn't bring it up at a council meeting, but at a work meeting, so we'd have an opportunity to discuss this, narrow it down, and give us some direction on what else to look forward to, see what we can provide information to get some primary answers on this.
Yeah, we don't necessarily have to table this. We can just
Yeah, we wouldn't.
say, well, this is our first step towards this. We don't have to make a decision of whether we allow it or not tonight.
Well, I'm not gonna table it tonight. I'm making the point of if they keep coming up like this at council meetings with all these, just like what I'm afraid when you said, hey, Capstone's gonna be doing the same presentation. If they do the same presentation they did for us prior to at the special meeting, we need a lot of things yet.
Well, right
That
now.
we go over.
Right now, this is what the city has.
I realize that, but would you approve that without any of that information? I wouldn't. I don't want houses 15 feet apart, and I have no idea what they're gonna be doing with half the stuff in there. First of all, it wouldn't even fly with, the traffic couldn't be handled on 22 or 65 without major considerations.
Oh, with respect, we're talking about the trailer park right now.
Okay,
Councilman Miller, if I may, our zoning code would not allow this. So for me to get a
Would
request,
would not allow which?
the
The trailer park.
expansion to the manufactured home park, there are too many nonconformities, there's too many
Okay.
zoning issues, there's too many things related. My easy answer to the applicant on the phone is, no, we won't. However, there are some things built into law that allow for those things, and if I give them a denial and they want to appeal it, you guys get to hear the appeal. So if we can get you some information now for you to make a judgment call, then we can feel confident saying yes or no to them, or
gotcha,
we'll be getting you the information on the appeal, so.
gotcha.
I definitely I don't wanna ever say no to their expansion. There's just many different ways that we can get this gone through. We just gotta get the stuff answered, that's all.
Yeah,
We
that's just
definitely
it.
don't wanna deny.
And that's what we're here for. We're here just to open it up, just say, hey, what do we need?
Yeah, I'm not anti-development in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, because our code specifically says what's approved, what's not approved.
Right,
And I can easily say that's not approved by by our code.
right.
And they go, well, who do I appeal it to? Well, here's the Board of Appeals.
Right.
So if we can work with them to get them an answer positively or negatively, you don't have to see them on an appeal and then ask 100 questions
Right.
and then still make the decision. If we can give them a maybe, gather as many facts as we can, present you with the initial question, and if you guys are interested in exploring that, we can do that exploration. If we say no and they come to you with an appeal, we're gonna be doing a whole lot of homework ahead of time for the appeal hearing for you guys, so.
Well, I've seen a lot of zoning changed over the years through zoning text amendment, just so, well, another man's treasure. We had to do a zoning text amendment to allow a car lot down in there. I don't know if you were around back in those days. Another one was right up here on the corner when the Russian guys moved in. Because even though the code was there, we had to amend it to say that, and this can be part of the zoning text amendment if you are open to retail one day out of the week. And again, so zoning can be changed, it's just, it's gotta benefit everybody. And I mean, if they wanna spend the money, I don't see anything wrong with the expansion as long as they can get through all the hurdles.
Unless I'm missing something, they got a more fundamental issue than whether to expand or not, and that is they don't have a conditional use permit for what they're doing now, that anybody can find. I would think that's the primary issue before expanding or
Yes and
anything.
no,
It's like,
I think
well,
our city attorney
you're in
would
complete
support-
non-compliance now,
I
should
think our
bother
city
you a little.
attorney would support the fact that a non-conformity can stay in non-conformance as long as they don't, expand.
Conform.
Right. So they're basically they're grandfathered in.
That's exactly, that is the layman's term, if you will.
Okay.
Non-conformity, existing non-conforming would be the industry term for grandfathered in.
But there's
So-
limits to that too, aren't there?
To some degree there is.
Everything's shades of gray. you
Yeah.
know?
Uh,
Okay,
so-
what do you, let's wrap it up. What,
So with this
what do you-
subject, Aaron, now that it's brought to the city's attention, do we need to get a CUP in place for this trailer court to have everything done proper for them?
Well, I need to continue all the way through to when our existing ordinance was put into place. And then, like I stated earlier, I need to go back and do the research into the meetings around when the ordinance changes happened to see if they came in any form to ask for a conditional use permit or something. And it just didn't get filed with the county, I suppose is a potential. However, you know, the failure of an administrative action doesn't negate the fact that it happened. So if they did apply for a conditional use permit and there was a hearing, which there would have had to have been, that process hasn't changed, we would have record of it somewhere. Unfortunately,
So,
I don't.
assuming the worst, we can't find it, would they need a new one? Would we have to reissue something?
Well, according to our ordinance, they should have. I would confirm with our city attorney to make sure that that is the proper process.
So, that would be my first recommendation, to let the, search play out, see if the original one can be found, and if not, take steps to issue a new one so that they are at least compliant in their operation as is, whether it's a legal non-conforming with a CUP or what have you. Once that is done, hopefully some more of these questions that we have can be asked and addressed. We can have some more information as to whether we ultimately want to pursue taking it any farther with an expansion. At least
So what's the next step?
that'd be
Just
my
have city attorney
suggestion.
look at it? And see if they can even come within conformity?
Well, if a conditional use permit does exist, then we have a whole nother conversation. If a conditional use permit was never issued or never applied for or doesn't exist, then that's a major step that has to be accomplished before they can even consider, we could even consider the expansion. As I said, our ordinance reads that that's not allowed in that location, and nonconformity by state statute doesn't allow for expansion. So, but state statute does allow for a city council to make an ordinance to allow for the expansion to happen, should you want to do that.
then you get back to equal treatment under the law.
So,
How much do you want to shoehorn the situation for one person versus everybody else, you know? And yeah, I wasn't wrong, it is a mud puddle. It really is. Good luck with that one.
whatever your direction is, we'll go that way.
Well, I think Brian stated a logical recommendation.
Or at least a first step to bring them into compliance as they're
Yeah.
operating as is. Because it's been brought to our attention. I don't think that should be left alone. It should be cured.
Jack, do you know if there's ever been any correspondence sent out to them saying that they're non-conforming and?
That's kind of been the general discussion with all our meetings with them. I think they recognize that. With the fact that they're legally non-conforming, then it really wasn't an issue with them. We didn't know that there was no CUP till we started looking into this and found out that we don't have anything on record.
But then how the heck could they sell it if they're,
That's what I'm wondering.
wouldn't the title company look into it and say, well, I know
Yeah.
you need a conditional use permit, do you have one, or?
Sometimes they don't go back that far. It just depends on the title company, and what kind of research they did on the purchase of this.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was wondering.
If
How-
it was filed with the title company, however, it would show up in county records during the
Right.
sale of
Yeah.
the property 3 years ago. And those documents exist, but there's no CUP that is accompanying that documentation.
Well, there's a lot of things that were done in this city years ago, so it wouldn't surprise me if something isn't there. It's worth looking at.
Okay, can we move on to the 2024 draft budget?
Thank you, Kevin. On May 10th, 2023, the City Finance Committee met with city staff to review and discuss the 2024 budget. The Finance Committee also discussed the general fund balance, the actual city financial performance from the prior year, and the city's debt service requirements. Concurrent to the Finance Committee meeting, the base budget was submitted to department heads for preparation of their individual department budgets. Based on inputs from the Finance Committee and department heads, the budget model and budget book were prepared for the City Council to review at tonight's meeting. The draft 2024 general fund expenditure budget is projected to increase by 4%, or $234,400 under this proposal. This expenditure increase would then result in a corresponding levy increase of 4.2%, or $253,500, in order to balance the 2024 budget. The 2024 budget model currently reflects the expenditure inputs which are listed as primary drivers of the overall increase outlined in your packet. These are salaries and benefits, contracted services, supplies, and city transfers. City staff department heads are present tonight from Administration, Finance, Community Development, Fire, and Public Works, and will present their proposals for their budgets and be available for questions on online items within these budgets. The Anoka County Sheriff's Department will present their contract and budget proposal at an upcoming council meeting. The remaining schedule for the discussion and consideration of the 2024 budget is tentatively set as other council meetings is required prior to September 11th, 2023 to arrive at a preliminary budget. The September 11th council meeting, where consideration will be for the approval of the preliminary 2024 budget and levy, and the December 11th city council meeting for the consideration of the final budget and levy. Upon the approval of the preliminary budget in September, budget amounts can be reduced, but they cannot be increased. City Council is requested to receive a presentation of the general budget overview tonight, department head proposals, and a review of the other remaining budget categories that are in your budget book and submitted electronically to you. So at this time, I'll ask Mike Jaworski to give just a general overview of the 2024 draft budget.
Thank you, Administrator Davis, Mr. Mayor, members of council. I do have just a few slides to go through to kind of set the stage for our 2024 budget overview. Again, I always like to kind of start with where we ended the 2022 year at, so we can kind of have a good baseline of where we ended the most completed year. Again, looking at where our revenues ended, we were at 101% of budget for revenues, and our expenditures were at 97% of budget. So again, we just feel that shows that we do a very good job in modeling our actual activity that occurs within a given year. Our general fund balance at the end of 2022, again, that's our most completed year, was at $3.7 million. And again, one way to look at fund balance, taking away a little bit of the complexity to it, is it's just the amount of money that the general fund has in the bank at the end of the year. Again, it's not that simple, but that's just one easy way to look at it. So at the end of 2022, we had $3.7 million in the bank. And again, the reason why we carry that amount of money is to cash flow the first 6 months of operations of the city. Again, the tax settlements that come in actually come in July and December of each year. So we actually have to cash flow the first 6 months of operations. So we have to carry roughly 50% of our current expenditures in the general fund. So again, we're a little bit over that at the 55%, again, the $3.7 million. So a good healthy fund balance. Also within the city, we set up capital funds for equipment, streets, parks, and compensated absences. Again, some cities do not have separate savings accounts for these items. They have to just either bond for them as they come up, or they have to specially assess. What we do is we do a transfer each year to fund each one of these capital areas, right? Again, we just had back in April our audit report for 2022, which continuous clean audit and audit opinion. Our bond rating is AA2, which is very, very strong. Our union contract then is approved through 2025. And then again, our city has the 7th lowest tax rate in Anoka County. So in 2022, we had a tax rate of 31.761, which is the 7th lowest. So that's kind of where we're starting, or that's where we ended 2022. Now we're right in the middle of 2023. And what we're talking about tonight is the 2024 proposed budget. The components of the budget, we're kind of breaking down into these different segments. The general fund, which is really the emphasis of tonight's meeting, again, that captures your general government activity, your community development activity, your public safety, your public works, your engineering, your risk management, and transfers. So again, your general fund is really the hub of all your financial activity, and all these other funds kind of break out from that. Within the budget book, we also have the special revenue funds, which are classified as the HRA, EDA, and recycling fund. Then we also have debt service funds, which we are down to 2 different bond issues at this point, the 2015A and the 2014A bond issues. And then again, we also have funds for building, parks, streets, equipment, and compensated absences. Again, those are separate funds funded solely by, or primarily by, general fund transfers. And then the last category is enterprise funds. Again, these funds act like business units where they are, the revenue is derived from user fees. So we have water, sewer, and arena fund for that. But again, the major component to tonight's meeting, or the emphasis tonight, is to have our department heads speak to their individual budgets within the general fund. Again, the general fund then, for revenues, we're looking at proposal of $6,683,700, or a 4% increase in our general fund revenues. One item that needs to be finalized is the amount of fund balance that we would like to use in order to balance the budget. And then under the general fund expenditures, again, we're looking at a 5% increase, going from $6,449,300 to $6,683,700. And one of the open items on this budget, or on the general fund, is the finalizing the FTE count for 2024. Our proposed levy then, again, in 2023, we had a general fund levy of $5,144,600. In this proposal, the levy would go up, the general fund levy would rise by 5%, going to $5,381,100. The other component of the levy on the tax statement is the debt service levy. Again, that's projected to go up 1.8%, from $945,500 to $962,500. And then adding the 2 levies up gives you the total levy increase that this budget model is showing it at 4.2%. I think now we can kind of go into the line item breakdown of each one of the departments. So under administration, again, there's 3 FTE. We have the city administrator, administrative coordinator, and administrative assistant. Under finance, we've got finance director, finance coordinator, and accounting coordinator. Attorney, we've got, that's a contracted service. Again, that's Eckford Lammers. Eric Larson is our representative. And then the city assessor is Ken Tolzman. So within your budget book, those general government expenditures are found on page 6 through 22.
What I would like to do though is let Rod go first so he can get back to his training sessions. We'll do it with department heads and then come back to this section right here. Rod, you wanna get up and give your budget proposal and be available for questions?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is my first time doing this, so I'm really not sure what to do. We can go line by line, or if you have a question on my budget, I'd gladly answer it. If you guys had a chance to go over my budget.
The good news is that 3 out of 5 of us, this is our first time doing it too, so.
That's the good news, yes, it
You're,
is.
you're in good company.
I'd say just give us a general overview of things have gone up, things have gone down.
Okay, general overview on it is, I have a proposed full-time employee in this budget cycle. We do have a SAFER grant applied for to cover this person for 3 years if we get the grant. If we do not get the grant, this person could be taken out of the budget. I'd like to wait on that until we find out if the grant's gonna get approved or not. Our employees, I do believe, a 3.5% increase in wages for everybody across the board, including the paid on call firefighters. And that's with our staffing. Staffing is, right now, we're at 27 full-time or part-time firefighters, paid on call firefighters. We have it in the budget for 35. I'd like to leave it there in case we do get a rush on people, which I doubt we will, but and that. Also, going back to the proposed person, our daytime firefighters right now, I have a possibility of losing 3 of them in next year due to retirement. They may retire, they may not. No one's letting me know. Just that there's 3 of them that are up to retire. They're just waiting to see if they want to go or not. And is there any questions on my
Is that
staffing?
determined by whether they're vested or not? Is that the,
All of them are, 2 of them are vested, way beyond vested. It just determines if they want to go or not.
tired of it or
Yeah.
whatever, yeah?
I assume in the event that they do retire, more than likely, somebody would be promoted from within to that position?
This is daytime
Or-
paid on call firefighters. So unless somebody joins, no.
Okay, and so would we have to advertise to
Well,
replace
yeah,
them,
we're always trying to recruit.
Or would we actually have to, create a new position?
That's what the proposed third person,
Yeah,
full-time
but-
person is for.
So would that
With that,
person take over those roles of 2 or 3 people that retired?
this
or-
third person would be community outreach, recruitment, helping with inspections, and be a body to run calls with Ben and myself. And that, like I said, these guys are paid on call, so one of them responds to about 70% of the day calls right now. The other one, he responds to 50% of them. And then you have one that responds to about 35% of them. So that one that responds to, the 2 that respond to 50 and 70%, those are the 2 that have good possibility of retiring. So, you take that out of there, that's over probably 250 calls they respond to. For
Okay.
day side.
Okay, so, the new position, in the event of 1 or 2 retirements, that new position would take over,
Yes, it would be,
be adequate to replace it?
yes, it would be adequate to replace them.
Okay,
But, so, yeah, and like I said, our daytime firefighters right now are people that are at home during the day. They're either sleeping, they have night jobs, or, are working in the city and able to leave their business to come to the calls. And
Okay.
that-
What do you think is the biggest stumbling block of getting firefighters?
No one wants to do it. That's the biggest stumbling block. It's,
Just the nature of the work, you mean?
it's the commitment.
Yeah.
And that I've been in front of you guys before.
No?
Just to become a responding firefighter, your first year, you have 240 hours of classroom that you have to do. That's just to get certified to become a firefighter. Plus, you have to do 30% of your calls. You have to attend all your meetings, all your trainings, and that.
Are you paid to train?
They are paid,
Okay.
yes. Yes, they get paid
It
for.
would be really tough if they weren't paid.
No,
Yeah,
they get paid for any hours that they
Right,
put towards
yeah.
the fire department in a fire department function. in that. So,
Do you think pay is part of the reason that people don't wanna do it also? Is that just,
I personally do not believe it is, unless you're gonna pay somebody $100 an hour to leave their family. No, I don't think it is. I know you guys have a neighbor, talk to him, and that's all I can tell you. Because is the pay, I don't know what the pay would have to be to get somebody to do this.
well, my days of EMS, we didn't get paid.
Yeah, well, you know, when I first started, we got paid $9 a call, no matter how long the call went. Now we're up to $15 an hour.
You're
Well,
essentially
that just ain't
volunteering.
enough.
Yes,
That just ain't enough.
You're doing it because you want to do the job.
and that. Yeah, like I said, if you're in here to get rich, you're in the wrong business.
Yeah, I understand that, but there's gotta be something. I mean, I, after 8 years on the street, I just burned out. And in that 8 years, never did get paid. So, yeah, we did like it. It's an adrenaline rush. But, I don't know.
Council member, I can't tell you what, you guys, I couldn't tell you how much you'd have to pay somebody to do this. I
Well,
really don't know.
what's the talk around the barnyard? You know, when you hear guys talking, say, yeah, you know, maybe if they paid more, or maybe if they did this, or you ever
The
hear
guys
any
at
of
the
that?
station right now,
Yeah,
they're actually there because they wanna be there. You know, yeah, the
Okay.
pay is
I-
nice. You
I-
have to wanna do this.
I think to answer that question, you'd probably have to go to a larger city, say St. Paul, Minneapolis, where they have numerous fire stations and they have full-time paid on-call fire, or paid fire department employees to
And-
get adequate response of, would I be,
Yep, and this is not just an East Bethel problem,
right,
people.
right, right.
oh, yeah.
It's countrywide, it's nationwide. In the metro area right now, Andover is considering hiring 12 full-time people. You know,
Do you think it would ever get to the point where we'd have to
That's the end.
take somebody from Ham Lake and put them on? Or another city? I mean, worst case scenario, if you say you got 27 and you're gonna go down 3 more,
it's a possibility of 3 more, yes.
I mean, I saw pretty good outlay of different fire departments over in Coon Lake Beach last week. And it was on the, between Dogwood and Elm Fire, and there were fire departments from people down in the
At least-
cities that
at
I
least
just couldn't
5
believe them.
different Fire
I,
departments.
on that one, I actually called 3-alarm fire.
Yeah.
We have our auto aid, at that time on Forest Lake could not respond
Really?
because they were out on the grass fire by themselves. And they had tied up Lino Lakes on that one. And that, I do believe St. Francis at that time was in the second box. They had a medical going on in that. Then I got Oak Grove. So, you know, I went down as far as Lexington, SBM in Lexington to get people. Plus the heat of the day. It was
Right.
92 degrees that day.
Yeah.
We were going through people left and right.
Well, they did a heck of a containment, 'cause boy, that neighborhood's just a tender waiting to go.
Yes, it was.
just a question about mutual aid, is, that just within Anoka County, or can you call in like Isani and Cambridge?
You can call Isani, Cambridge. You know, we do have mutual aid agreements with other counties.
Okay.
And that, Isani is on our box alarm to the north. Forest Lake is on our box alarm down in the southwest, east corner of the city, you know. So we can expand out if we needed to.
Okay.
Okay. Any more on staffing?
Yeah, so the one you're looking to bring on is the training community outreach proposed.
Yes. Yes, it is.
What other, I mean, 'cause you can only do so much outreach.
To run fire calls, or to run calls, to help out with inspections, because we are getting more businesses and that. You know, there has been possible where we may be doing rental inspections. We don't know yet. It's just to cover stuff that, because our daytime responders are going down. Our daytime responders are responding to about 500 calls a year. That's what they're responsible to respond to. You do, if they only run 30%, you know, that's 180 right in there. We don't want to burn them out.
No, that can happen.
And I believe another one of the responsibilities would be recruitment.
Yes, it would be recruitment. And also with this proposed person, if we got that, we would probably look at going to what is called a duty crew then, from 8 to 4, where these 3 people at the station, we'd be the only 3 people that would respond to calls, unless it was something major. Then we'd upgrade it. So you would save money in your paid on call people.
Right.
But like I said, right now, that is on a safer grant proposal right now. And that, so we're still waiting to hear from them.
Fingers crossed on that.
Have you ever been turned down on the SAFER grant? I don't recall last time I was on city council. I know it was filed for probably by Troy. I don't know if it was ever turned down or,
Yeah, I do believe we've been turned down on grants before and that. This is just a FEMA Safer grant for staffing. It's a 3-year grant. So this person would have to, eventually the city would have to pick up the tab on this person. If we, like I said, if we get it, we do not know if we're gonna even get this grant yet.
Yeah, but that would at least give us 3 years to
Yes.
start budgeting for it.
And to be honest with you, in a few years, we're gonna have to look at duty crews. Maybe before I retire, we may even have to look at going to full-time.
are there any paramedics?
We
Or
have
is everybody?
2 paramedics on our department.
Then what is the old EMT first responder now? That's a,
You got an EMT
EMR.
and you got an EMR.
Yeah.
Emergency medical responder and an EMT, and then paramedic.
Brian's.
so are they at the EMT intermediate? Or what would have been an EMT intermediate where you can do IVs and stuff like that?
We cannot do IVs. Our variance on, allowing a variance will not allow us to do IVs. Even though I have 2 paramedics,
Right.
when they're working for the East Bethel Fire Department, they are not allowed to go above our variance, which is given certain medicines, and that's it.
Where does the medical direction come from then?
Alina.
How many inspections do you do a year, Rod?
They do, Ben does every business every year, so it's
Once a year?
once a year. Plus he has his follow-ups to do, and that, sometimes we have to go out 3, 4 times.
How many businesses do we have actually, do we know?
I really do not know.
Okay. Does anybody know?
The last time that we looked on our sheet, I'm gonna say there was approximately 110 businesses registered. Now, they may have some more on theirs, I'm not sure, but.
The reason I'm asking that question is, I've checked with Ham Lake, St. Francis, Oak Grove, and actually I was on the Bethel Fire Department for 10 years myself. And we did all our own inspections. We were all volunteer, fire chief, captains, lieutenants, whoever it took to do the inspections. That's why I'm asking the questions, because we never had a full-time fire inspector. And Ham Lake doesn't have one. St. Francis doesn't have one. Oak Grove doesn't have one either. Ham Lake is, what, 40% larger than we are? But they do their own inspection, the fire chief, captains, whoever. So that's why I'm asking that question, why we have a full-time fire inspector when we have captains, chiefs like yourself, deputy chiefs that can be doing the inspections.
To do the inspections, you have to be certified as an inspector.
I understand that.
And that, which is Ben, like right now, I do believe on our department, it's myself, Ben, and one other person. And that. So, As for why we have a full-time inspector, that was hired before I became the chief. And that, because our inspections weren't getting done. We had a part-time inspector before, and, you know, when he would do it 1 day a week, we'd only get through the businesses probably half the business a year. This year, we're getting through them every year, we're keeping them current, we're keeping life safety current and that. So, and having that extra person there to respond during the day is very helpful. Ben and I.
No, I understand that.
Ben and myself can be out of that station in less than a minute
Right.
when somebody calls 911.
So do we do any transports, or is that strictly Alina?
That's strictly Alina. And that, we package patients for them and they transport. We'll send firefighters with if they need them. Anything else on staffing? Okay, then, let's see. Pension or anything like that? Questions on that?
The what, please?
What?
The what, please?
The fire pensions
Oh,
and that, contributions or anything?
I
Anything?
found out today that when you're mayor, you're a trustee.
Yes, you are.
Yeah, so I have to fill my form out tomorrow
And
and
that, yes, you do.
email it in.
Yes, you are.
Yeah.
You are a trustee on this relief board. And that, so.
I'd keep an eye on that pension fund if I were you. I have
Well,
moments
Mr.
of
Mayor,
shifting
yeah.
and stuff.
It's very hard to
Just
get.
kidding around.
Yeah, it's very hard to do that because you need 2 signatures and we're not involved with it.
No,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay,
Any other, anything else, or?
no, like I said, I'm up here to answer any question you guys have on my budget and that.
I need a little more time to go through it. I wasn't gonna waste the whole weekend
Yes, I
going through the
understand that.
budget book.
And that, you know,
It's not our last shot at you, is it?
no, no, it's not.
Did you get out on the Scorpion yet?
On the boat,
Yeah,
that's next week's training.
next week, okay.
Yes, we may take that out.
Be interested to hear how that goes. You gonna
Yeah.
be on Coon?
We'll be on Coon at 9 o'clock in the morning on Monday, and we'll be on Coon Lake at 7 o'clock at night, one day,
Cool,
and that.
good.
Just one thing to note on his budget. So his budget currently reflects a 12% increase. Again, that is primarily driven by that added staff member.
Right,
So,
right.
and then one other thing to note is that added staff member is in the expenditure side, but the SAFER grant is still at 0 up top, so.
All right,
So that figure could change.
Yep.
yeah,
Yes, it could. Like I said,
dynamic.
we're just waiting to hear from FEMA on the SAFER grant, is what we're waiting to hear. There may be another grant period opening up, but we're not for sure yet. But right now, we're just waiting to hear on the grant.
When is is the correct term extraction equipment, when is that going on?
Extractor,
Yeah, the extractor.
it has been delivered.
Good,
We are waiting right now for, to figure out where we're gonna have room to put it.
Mhm.
We may have to talk to the maintenance director to see if we can use some of his room. Yeah,
Completely non-compliant.
Yeah, so that, it is delivered, we're just waiting,
Okay.
trying to
yeah.
figure out where
Well,
we're
that's
gonna put
good.
it. And that I have to get with the officers up at Station 2 and, you know, see where the best place to put it is.
Good.
Is there any other questions or concerns?
Speak now or forever hold your peace.
Or at least
Till the
until the
next
next
one.
meeting.
Yeah, at least till the next meeting. I guess not.
Okay, thank you, guys.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, chief.
Thanks, Rod. Nate, you wanna come up and go over your budget now?
We'll do Aaron next. I got a few of them, so. Yeah. Before I hand it over to Aaron, I just want to quickly go over the staffing in his department. So community development captures planning and zoning and the building inspection. So Aaron is the interim community development director. The city planner within this budget model has been eliminated. Sherry Eisenbraun is the community development permit technician. Nick Schmitz is the building official. Steve Lutmer is the building inspector, and then Andrew Sloth is the electrical inspector, which is the contracted out.
Right.
Within his budget, again, planning and zoning sees a decrease of negative 36%, and again, the primary driver of that is the elimination of that city planner position within this budget model. And then the building inspection department is seeing an increase of 3%. Again, the primary driver of that is the 3.5% COLA increase for the 3 employees within that division. With that, I'll hand it over to Aaron for a little bit better overview and to answer any questions the city council has.
All right, thanks, Mike. Highlights, under staffing, we've proposed 1 position with the elimination of the city planner position. All of the benefits, health insurance increases are all across the board citywide. We do have an item for a potential part-time employee to help fill in with the elimination of a position. We also have...
Would that be like permit technician kind of work?
It really depends. I think that's a little bit flexible. We do have it dedicated for the evening cable technician to run meetings, but if the decision is made not to do that, we may need a assistant somewhere. On the budget itself, under professional services, we do have a $12,000 item that was carried over. That's for the Laserfiche scanning service. We had intended on hiring a firm to come in and scan all of the paper documents so that we can make things accessible to our residents online. That has just been carried over. It did not happen this year. So potentially some of that part-time money could be used to assist with scanning, and the $12,000 cost may be a little bit smaller. Our IT services, that's an annual thing to utilize computer network and telephones. Legal notices, a majority of the legal notices we collect an escrow on and get that reimbursed when we send those out. Software licensing for our GIS system, and then the Laserfiche system to start. We've begun scanning those documents. They all need to be collated and categorized and addressed properly. Again, on filing fees, we collect those from most of the applicants at the window, so you're seeing the expenditures there, but we do have money coming back in that fills that budget item in. Dues and subscriptions, as a new planner, new community development director, being part of the 2 local chapters of Planning and Economic Development Association is a good thing to get networking opportunities as well as have resources available for questions. And then we included an item for conferences and meetings, so the League of Cities Planning Workshop, and as well as Ellers Conference. Ellers is who does all of our financial management. So working with finance on any TIF agreements or those sort of documents, there is an opportunity to attend a conference that deals with those items. So that's for planning and zoning.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Well, I guess I can. Yeah.
Sure can. Yes.
Can I please ask you a question? How long do you think you're going to be able to get along without a city planner, or is that, that's an important question. I would love to believe that you know, getting a bigger title, bigger paycheck and all that is gonna, you know, turn you into an 80-hour-a-week guy, but I don't think that's feasible. So how are you gonna get the work done without having to add someone?
Well, in terms of workload, the number of applications that come in the door dictate the amount of work that we have to do.
Right.
So they work hand in hand. So to fully answer your question.
But it seems from what I hear through the grapevine that you seem pretty maxed maxed out or feel pretty maxed out?
There are a
anyway?
number of weeks where have reached the overtime level by the end of Thursday and end up
Yeah.
taking part of Friday off in compensation because
Huh.
there's not the extra time budgeted for overtime. So I think
Well, you're salaried, right?
I'm not. I'm hourly.
Oh, you are?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. I thought you were salaried.
So in order to honor the budget and honor the person before me who decided there was no overtime, I'm just comping at the end of my 40 hours and
Yeah.
either taking it off earlier on in the week or on evenings where there is a planning commission meeting, I may leave a couple hours early because I know I'm dedicating 2 hours later on that night to work time. So trying to accommodate those is
But
what
if,
we're
but
trying to do.
given the proposed change, it hasn't happened yet, but it's proposed, what are you gonna do to, take care of all the, filling out, doing research on zoning, filling out permits, whatever? Is it Sherry or Shelley that's gonna complement your efforts?
Well, we've attempted to address some of the permitting issues with the electrical inspector and addressing that by getting that out of our office and letting the state handle that, so that would free up some of her time to
Right,
work on the
right.
permit technician stuff. In terms of getting items ready for the planning commission meetings,
Right.
I've leaned on her as well as Emily to help assemble packets for the meetings so that I can continue to work with.
She comfortable with all that?
I believe so. No
Okay.
one's ever said that they're not. And I'm more than willing to help them or aid them in any way.
Right.
They're willing to get those as far as they can. So I do think it was I think it was Abraham Lincoln that said there was some quote about the future, and I think the best way to predict your future is to plan your future. So therefore, in some form or fashion, we need to plan this city, because that's our future.
Well, yeah, I'm just, what I'm getting at is, are you gonna have enough resources to do the job?
Well,
Or as soon, if we make you the community development director, are we then looking at a hire not soon after, because there's just not gonna be enough of you to go around? That's what I'm getting at.
well,
Okay.
Jack, if you wanna,
Kevin, we're really gonna find that out at the beginning of the year.
Oh.
If Elvidge is going to start their clearing and grubbing activities tomorrow, again, they want to be in the ground and have some units under construction by the end of the year. If the capstone thing goes through, we're looking at 3 to 5 years of anywhere from 70 to 100 building permits a year that'll be processed. With Elvidge, it'll be 3 to 5 years. There's 200 units there, so there's another 60 to 70. It's gonna put more demands on the building department, which we can hire somebody temporary, part-time, or full-time, because the permit fees for the building permits will pay for that. As far as the city planner goes, and we had just briefly had this discussion before, we expect that position will have to be filled. Currently, Aaron and I are able to handle everything going forward, but beginning in 2024, when this hits, and it probably won't hit on January 1st, it may be on
Right,
toward the
right.
end of the year, and this is assuming everything goes through, then there's gonna be a lot more pressure and some need for that. One of the things we've looked at is maybe we can get some of this done at least on a temporary basis through 2024 and come up with a final answer for the 2025 budget.
But you think you're probably good for the rest of 2023?
well, we'll continue to plug away. I mean,
Yeah, I'm, and I'm not speaking so much for Aaron, but I think what we have before us, we've been able to handle it now for the last 6 months. But there's kind of an expiration date on what he's doing too, that we're asking him to do a lot more things, but he's been extremely cooperative, extremely willing, and extremely dedicated. So I think we can make it through 2023.
Yeah.
yeah, the public is really gonna dictate how satisfied or dissatisfied they are with us pushing their expected deadlines a little farther down the road. And I might have mentioned before, where I was giving somebody a week or 2 weeks to get them an answer on maybe doing a lot line change or something like that, or finding out a survey for their property, or how many horses can they have. those kind of things are getting pushed now beyond a 2-week answer or time frame. So we're taking care of the items that are of time importance, and then we're getting to those at that time. So filling out documentation so that people can combine lots and take it over to the county with the city approval, it's probably not happening within 30 days anymore. That's just the nature of the beast. That's where we're at right now. Again, this is, we're in the summer, we're in building time frame. People want permits, they wanna know where they can put their garage, they wanna know where their lot, like, and then when we get into the cold weather months, things are gonna slow down.
Right.
Cause people aren't hammering nails, through the winter months, at least not the general public.
Right.
Developers might be. Or then we can get caught up on some of these things like ordinance revisions or, potential changes that need to happen in order to facilitate something that you guys may request.
Okay, well, I'm not
so-
there every day, so I'm just asking practical questions. All I'm looking at is a budget.
Yeah, and if the general public
We don't
is-
want you like diving out the window or something on us or something.
the general public is starting to get dissatisfied with timelines.
Yeah,
So far, we haven't had that, and I'm trying to be very accommodating as I can
Yeah,
with them,
yeah.
with things, and if I know that there are things that can be pushed off, I might squeeze in a 15-minute lot line adjustment or something, the documents as see fit, or if there's only 30 minutes left in the day and I don't want to start on another project that's going to take 2 days, I can squeeze some of those things in. So it's just a matter of me utilizing my time and then leaning on Jack and as well as our other staff members to fill in some of those holes where
Okay.
it might seem like it's a little bit more busy than the functional stuff that we need to get done, so.
One other thing I'd like to say about Aaron is he has great organizational skills, and I don't know if you remember when you were in grade school, there used to be a category on your report card that says, uses time wisely. I got X marks, Aaron gets a check mark.
Huh. All right, well, that settles that. No, that's, thanks for answering my questions.
You bet. And in terms of the building inspections, the building department, and I would have to lean on what Nick Schmitz has provided for here. I think there were just some minor adjustments, and as Mike pointed out, it was mostly for the cost of living items that are across the board citywide. So with the building department, you know, there's inspections and training, I think, are the most important functional things that they do. So they're gonna need vehicles to be able to get out doing inspections. So looking at vehicle replacement of parts is one thing. And then their dues and subscriptions, as well as attending conferences for their ongoing required training to maintain their license, is also significantly important. Gas fluctuates, obviously. We know that the market moves up and down, so that's a one to always look at. But I think, as I pointed out, it was the cost of living raise across the building inspections budget there. And as Jack has pointed out, if building starts to take place, the application fees should help supplement any necessity to add a part-time inspector or a part-time reviewer of doing plan review or those kind of items. We can accommodate that based on the number of applications coming to the door.
We have utilized a part-time inspector before with good results, and it was a lot cheaper at that time to do that than hiring on an additional person. So I think that's a good approach to initially take care of those pressures that we may experience in 2024. And if it goes beyond that, then we'll have to look at another
Yeah.
solution.
Of course, yeah. By the way, I was mainly focused on deportment on my report card, as you might guess. Class clown, yeah. Thank you,
So I got a question. What do you think city planner versus community development director, what do you think that you bring in your bag of tricks that separates you from city planner, community development director?
Well, although both are very complementary positions, the community development director or a position in community development has more to do with community engagement, and overall management of long-term projects. Whereas the city planner position, maybe more appropriately for answering zoning-related questions. How many chickens can I have? How many acres, how many horses can I have? Where can my pole building be put up? What are my setbacks? How many acres do I have? Is there a survey in the file? I want to put up a fence. Where can I put the fence? I live in the Shoreland Overlay District. What's 25% of my lot coverage for impervious surface?
Kind of like the mechanics of it.
Yeah, the nuts and bolts. And then
Yeah.
if you will, the community development director position is one who might be out talking to the local businesses who find out, well, I don't have enough storage. Is there anything we can do to acquire more storage? Or how can we work things to make storage happen? And then, as Mr. Miller has brought forward, an ordinance amendment to accommodate extra storage for
Right.
our businesses.
Yeah.
Those are the connections that the community development director needs to make. Or dealing with our developers. They want to propose a subdivision. What lot sizes? What location? Is it on a county highway? Is it on a city street? What would the setbacks be? Is it close to the future use area? So those larger overall development things. And then if you end up with, as we currently have proposed, you have two proposed developments side by side. Someone might need to work with them to make sure that their trails connect. Make sure that their sewer line can handle the flow from one to the other. Make sure the water line's going in the right direction. Make sure that we have future trajectory of a potential road from the north to the south that's gonna run through their development or miss their development by 40 feet in the wrong direction. So it's more of a, maybe a master or a master planner, if you will, over the top of what as you described it, maybe nuts and bolts or the mechanics of.
More
Of those
interested in
functional
in the synergies.
So then if you're made community development director, who do we have that can slip into that other space and take care of all them other duties?
You don't right now, that's me.
Yeah, but I'm saying if you're bumped up, now you're community development director, now we need a city planner.
Well, I'm gonna still have to do those functions because we've eliminated that position. That is a function that's now gonna be a requirement of the department. So somebody's gonna have to fill that.
But realistically, do you think that's gonna be within a short period of time? I mean, I'm looking at it because I know what it takes to be on the city council, and a lot of time, right? And you burn out, or you could. Now you do city planner, community development duties, and now you're gonna be bumped up. So here's this hole down here that we're gonna have to fill, and like Kevin had asked earlier, is it something that it's gonna have to be pretty soon, or is it, well, we're just gonna try and wing it, if we can't, then we'll hire somebody?
Well, with respect to my ability to get things done, Councilman DeRoche, I'm also a council member. I'm also on a planning commission. My Mondays and Tuesdays every other week are either in this community or in my home community. So my schedule is very packed, just like yours. I've also had full-time jobs, part-time jobs, coached varsity baseball for Cambridge High School for 5 years consecutively while working. Completed a master's degree while working full-time. My ability, as Jack has pointed out, to organize things and maximize my time is pretty amazing, to be honest.
Yeah.
So, and in the meantime, I've also purchased and remodeled an entire home. So,
When you're not doing all that, you're just laying around, huh?
you're resting my back so that I can get back up and do it again tomorrow. Absolutely. So, granted, there are independent functions of each position. Again, they work in concert with each other. So in order for one to do their job, the other one has to exist. Someone has to pick up those functions. Whether it's the same person doing both of those functions or
Yeah.
two independent people doing those functions, they're gonna have to happen. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the amount of applications coming in the door is gonna dictate the amount of work that we have to do. And if we have 90 to 100 applications coming in, that's gonna be a lot of work. You're right, there's no doubt about it. some of that is manageable. Timelines, scheduling. The ones that are difficult are the entire subdivisions that come in that have many, many layers to get through. Multiple public hearings, doing all the research, managing the information coming in for wetland review, wetland permitting, managing the timeline, getting comments back from Public Works, getting comments back from the city engineer, making sure that the building permit or the building plans have all been reviewed, and then assembling that all into one nice packet, and then giving the approval to go ahead or move forward, or waiting for components to come in. It's all about organization management. It's like a large project manager.
Well,
But then you got many projects going on at the same time, so you've got, it's like moving all the pieces around.
Many spinning plates at the same time.
Yes,
Bo-
or
Bob?
hats.
Can I interject something since I'm Aaron's supervisor and I've watched him work? But one of the things we have available to us, and we've had success with it in the past, is we've hired not interns, but some contract people to do some of this city planning work. We had a great success with it. Several years ago, we hired a young lady by the name of Erin McDermott who did a fantastic job. She was actually a contract employee for us for several months, and then she was hired on as a city staff. That gave us a chance to evaluate her performance. So you're not taking a resume and looking at it and it looks good, and you get somebody in here and they don't perform as well as what they have done on paper. We do have that option if we get totally snowed under. As Aaron said, there's some money in the budget for that, but I believe that through at least the next 6 to 8 months, we'll be able to handle that, and then we'll be able to make an evaluation. And at some point, we will need a city planner, but when that point is, I can't tell you exactly right now. It's
well,
coming.
that's
but-
kind of what was getting at, that's what Kevin was getting at, is we eliminate the city planner, which, too bad whatever. And so he's gonna take the community development job, eliminate the city planner, but in actuality, we are gonna have to hire the planner anyway.
At some point,
So why
Eventually.
wasn't it just put out there that we need a city planner and we're gonna hire him for community development?
because there was a question too, do we need both positions? So ultimately, we will, but right now, we're surviving without it.
I think, Jack, last summer you hired an intern that turned out to be your city planner, which is now doing your community development director work. So I think interns can work. You just have to find the right one.
Gotta ask questions.
Yeah. That's how we learn,
Yeah.
Bob.
Some of us.
And you know, again, this is an effort we're making to keep our costs down,
Oh.
keep our budget expenditures as low as possible, and still manage to get the work done. But again, like we've said before, we're only gonna need this position. And the date we're gonna need it, right now, we can survive without it. We've worked out some good schedules to get the work done, so, you know, if you wanna go ahead and add that to the budget this year, we can certainly do that. But I believe we're okay through the end of this year and beginning in 2024, and then we can reassess our situation.
Well, I've watched the add it to the budget now and then come next year, it's, well, it's in the budget, let's just do it. Right, so I don't wanna do that. Hey, Jim, pretty quiet down there tonight.
Thinking. I'm still
Careful.
confused. One thing that, I mean, I understand the two different things, city planner, community development director. But if I understand you right, you're doing both jobs right now, basically.
Yeah.
Because now, if you're hired as the community director, you're gonna focus more on that than the, city planner?
Well, those calls are not gonna stop coming in, Jim, and there's no
Right.
one else that's gonna be able to answer them. So they're
Right.
gonna get routed to me anyway. But the community development director would also supervise the department. So I currently do that right now as the interim community development director. When
Okay.
a staff member wants to call in sick, I have to take those phone calls. I sign most of their timesheets when they need to get paid. If they have questions that need to be answered from a department standpoint, right? We don't need 4 or 5 extra people walking down to Jack's office to get questions, because Jack's just gonna walk back down the hallway to ask me the question to answer to the staff member who's sitting in the
Well-
office right next door.
Well, right, but Jack's supposed to know it all. Why would he be asking you that?
Well,
Just kidding you.
humor me, Jim, you've looked through the ordinance book, haven't you? There's probably no way to memorize all of that. That is, that is a beast, for sure. So,
And again, we're doing things, and this is the way we've always done them. Even when we had a city planner, we had periods where there was an influx of work. It's done on a priority basis and a triage
Yeah,
basis.
exactly.
Some things that are the high priority, you focus on those, and then you get back to the lower priorities. It's a
Yep.
continual reshuffling and a juggling act.
and I think
So-
developing relationships with builders or developers or our community, when they have those questions and they need an answer, you get a lot farther when you have a mutual respect, when you say, you know, it's probably gonna be 2 weeks. When they could call over to Andover, probably, and have a development over there with someone who's a staff that's twice what we have, and get an answer in about a day and a half, or maybe even on spot. So,
Or maybe 2 weeks.
but developing those relationships, like either of the Strandlands wanna call up and have a conversation, well, I drop what I'm doing as a city planner to have a conversation with them. Because why? They're important to our community, and I give them the respect, and then they respect back when I say, I'm gonna be honest with you, it might be a week, it might be 2 weeks before I can get you an answer. And they're okay with that. If we get an out-of-town builder that comes in and they expect an answer when they get on the phone, that might not happen. Those relationships don't exist without someone fostering those relationships.
Tim?
I actually think it's a very refreshing way that we're looking at this position. It's based on needs and wants. We need it, we're looking at it, we know what we want in the future, we're identifying it, bringing it out, and we're not putting the horse in front of the cart, so to speak, or the other way around. It's a way to save money, it's a way to be efficient, and it's a way to be open with everybody here in council, the city, and on staff. So, I mean, the way we're approaching this, in this position, I respect it and I like it.
Good with it?
Yeah.
Well, Brian's fully satisfied, so we're all squared away then.
I think Brian likes to be able to pick up the phone and talk to the person in charge of community development versus working his way up the chain to get to the answer he wants. And I think that that's what a lot of our developers look for is, who's the guy in charge? Because they're the guy in charge of their own company, and they want to speak to someone at the same level and get an answer.
And have a constant person there that we can build that relationship.
Anything else for Mr. Berg? Thank you for answering all our questions.
No problem.
Appreciate it.
You be available for some questions during the week?
I'll give you my card.
I'll give you mine, I didn't get them yet.
Thank you, Aaron.
All right, before I hand it over to Nate, I'm just gonna briefly go over his budget again. His public works budget is broken into parks maintenance and street maintenance. Both of those budgets are seeing an increase of 3% roughly. Again, the main drivers on those are going to be the COLA increase for the union employees and the public works manager. And then he also is gonna touch on the salt and asphalt prices too within his budget. Bring up this too, just so we can kind of identify his staff. So again, within streets and parks, we have a public works manager, we have a lead maintenance technician that handles kind of the parks, and then we have a lead maintenance technician that kind of handles the streets and the utilities, and then we have 6 other maintenance technicians.
Is one of them part-time, the summer guy?
We have 2 seasonal summer employees as well.
Okay.
So these are just the full-time staff.
Are these guys all union then?
They're all union except Nate, yep.
Nate's not union?
Nate is not in the union,
Oh,
so
okay.
these 8 employees and then our building inspector make up the union positions within the city.
So these union guys then, they're the 3%?
Yep, so the 3.5% is, again, in the union contract, but the way we've done it in the past, then we just use that 3.5% for all the employees of the city. With that, I'll hand it over to Nate.
Good evening, Mayor and council members.
Good evening.
I have got a few different budgets, but we'll start with the park maintenance and street maintenance budgets. This is on page 44 of your budget packet. So we've got half of our staff falls underneath the parks budget, half of our staff falls under the streets budget. The employees are not designated for which ones they're gonna be in. They both perform works from both budgets, so almost all these items can be kind of interchanged between the two. It's a way of kind of just keeping an accounting of where we're at. As Mike alluded to, the only increase we're really seeing in our parks maintenance budget that we're requesting this year is just from the union budget cost of living increase. So everything from line item 151 and down is the stuff that basically I have oversight over. And we're only looking for a $1,000 increase in line item 223, which is building repairs. So this would be repairs to park buildings, irrigation, things like that. We've kind of generally underfunded that category. So other than that, there really isn't any change proposed in that budget. With this budget and the street maintenance budget, there's a lot of variability that depends on weather events. So if we get a lot of snowstorms, that'll be reflected in both of these two budgets, under overtime, under fuel, under some of these parts, like line item 221, motor vehicle parts, that covers our licensed vehicles, like our pickup trucks, things like that. But there again, they both fall between parks and streets operations, and actually our utility operations come out of this too. So is there any questions specifically for the parks budget at all? That one's pretty straightforward. One item that we haven't changed that could see some variability is line item 212, the motor fuels. If you go back, we show the previous couple years there, what we've expended at the end of the year. In 2021, we were at 17,000. In 2022, we were at 25,000. This year, we're on pace for around, a little over 20,000 again. So that one could be over. But at the end of the year, we always try and look at the bottom line on the budgets, and we've never gone over on either one of these budgets. So.
Yeah.
So with that, we can go to the street and maintenance budget. This is page 50 in your packet. There again, the top line items are the employees, cost of living and different things that go along with that. So from line item 201 and down, that's kind of what we're talking about tonight. The only big proposal change we have in here is line item 224. This is due to increases in asphalt patching material, and we just got our contract for our salt for the following year. The price for our salt went up 15% for this year, and over the last 4 years, it's gone up a total of 50%. So in 2020, we were paying $65 a ton. And our new price for this year is $99 a ton, so.
Are the suppliers giving you any explanation other than they'd like to make more money?
It's bid all through the state of Minnesota, so all the cities, are all in the same bid.
Do you all buy from Cargill?
Each supplier picks which ones they bid on, and they take the lowest one for that. So not all of them will bid on our city's amount, but we typically it's Compass Materials is the one that has had our contract for the past few years.
I don't know if it's still true, but at one time, when I was in the grain business, Cargill was the largest trader of salt in the world, among other things.
Yeah, they're huge.
Yeah.
And
Is it the patching materials or the salt that's driving the increases? Is it
in this line item?
Yeah,
Both.
well, and yeah. I mean,
It's
is it
both,
both
yep.
equally or what?
So typically, we budgeted around 12,000 to 15,000 for patching material. This year I've been patching for 29 years in a row now. It's my 29th summer working in Public Works, and I've never seen potholes like this.
Again, no explanation.
Well, it was just due to the winter weather. We had a
Oh,
lot of
yeah,
days where it
just-
was
Yeah,
warm
demand
during
driven.
the day, it thawed out, even if it
Oh,
was
yeah.
below freezing, the
Yeah,
asphalt temperatures
terrible
were
on
so high.
roads, yeah,
It would freeze at night, below part of the road.
yep, yep. Are
So
you guys seem to be pretty well caught up on all the patching,
We're
though.
almost there. We got
Yeah.
maybe 2 more weeks left of some stuff in
Man.
some smaller
My
neighborhoods.
road
Been a
ain't-
bear.
Just in time for winter again.
Yeah.
Yeah, put the box back on.
Exactly.
My road's not done.
Yeah, it should be, actually, I think it'll be there tomorrow.
Yeah,
I
that's
figured.
on purpose,
I
pal.
seen this, I seen this
We'll see. It's
street sweeper.
Yeah, they're doing the cleaning on it. They're,
Yeah.
probably tomorrow morning, or tomorrow afternoon they'll be over there. So that accounts for that increase in there, and we haven't really raised that amount too much in the past, so we're probably been behind a little bit on that, so that's really the only increase we're looking for in the street side. If there's any questions on that at all.
Nice,
Pretty
nice job on Maynard Peterson Park.
Huh?
On Maynard Peterson Park.
Yeah, on Coon
City
Lake.
finally took care of it. There's a girls' fast pitch that plays out of there.
Yeah,
Minnesota Smoke.
It was good to have a partner come in there that wanted
Yeah.
to use that field, and they kicked in some money, and,
They did. Oh, they did a
Yeah,
nice job.
That's
they
working out
kicked in,
great.
I think around $8,000 it'll be over the next 3 years, but it'll go back into the park fund to help cover
Better
some
than
of the
sitting
costs.
empty.
As locals, Bob and I are local out there, and it's really nice to see the facility used again.
Yeah,
Well, for such a long time, since all us geezers quit playing
so the,
softball.
new backstop material will be going in, they're scheduled for the end of this month, so.
Yeah.
They said they were gonna put a dugout in.
Not an actual dugout, there's gonna be fencing around it, so it'll be isolated, and there'll be like we have out in Booster Park, a tin roof. that
Oh,
we built-
all
our guys
right,
built
yeah.
that themselves on there, but.
They're doing a nice job.
So that's it for our 2 operational budgets. Do we want to get into, I handle the expenditure side of the water, the sewer, recycling, the arena, some of the government buildings, if there's any questions on any of that stuff too.
How are we doing on the recycling?
That fund has been balanced, with no increase really on that. That's all funded through the grant from Knuckle County, so.
Cool.
Water and sewer funds are self-funding from user fees on that, besides the bond payments. I think we have some increase in our water, budget, just because the number of users is going up, so our chemicals that we use for water treatment, we had to put aside a little bit more money for those, but nothing too crazy in there either.
How's that well on the north end?
The well number 1,
Yeah, I think that's probably it.
that one's not in use.
What's that?
That one's not used.
Decommissioned, huh?
No, it's still operational. We turned it on last year and ran it just to keep it current, but, we have enough capacity with well 2. It's designed to be blended with well 2 if needed, and it can still be in the future, but we have enough capacity with well 2 right now that we don't need to use well 1.
Well,
Large-
how's the
large
well
capacity.
down in the sewer water district?
Both of those are working great. There's 3 and 4 down there. There's a lot of capacity.
I think
there.
there's one, at one point, we were gonna have to, just wash out 750,000 gallons a month or something, back when that first came in.
Yeah, when it first came in, we had less than 10 users on the system. We were
Right.
having frequent flushing requirements to reduce any sediment buildup in the lines, but a lot of that problem's been changed by the addition of the users. Not to get back to Village Green or Cedarwood, but that would be the advantage of having them connected to our water system, is we'd have a big end of the user on the line, which would help in the maintenance of that system.
Well, we've got a couple wells over there. Wasn't there 2 or 3 that were put in the ground?
We have 2 at the water plant,
Yep.
and both of them were pretty high production wells. And we also, like you say, we have 2 up at Whispering Aspens. One which is not used now because of the
Radium level.
radium levels in it. The other one's in a different aquifer, so it doesn't have those issues.
Okay.
Yeah, we have more than enough use now to keep that system on the south end working.
All right.
Any other questions?
Yeah, speaking of aquifers, did we ever hear back from the superintendent when they were concerned about the school, Cedar Creek over there with their bacteria in the water?
No,
Good,
we haven't heard back from them.
No, they're having it tested.
Yeah. We haven't heard any response from them on that. I can definitely follow up with him to see what they found out, though.
thanks for bringing that up, Tim, I'd forgotten about that.
Just saw in my notes.
Anything else for Public Works side of things? Do you wanna get into equipment replacement at all?
Yeah, do you wanna touch on the transfers out to the street capital increase?
Yeah, we kinda already went over that when we did the street capital review. I don't know, was that,
Okay, so you already,
we did street.
Yeah,
you already touched on that.
let's go over it again because it is a big thing in the budget.
These were, towards the back of your package.
It's gonna be pages 55 and 56 of the book.
No, 85. Oh, you're looking at the,
Yeah, I'm just looking at the general, you're looking at the CIP?
yeah,
Yeah, CIP works too.
So which is it, guys?
either one.
Either one?
Go with you, Dick.
Okay. So general fund transfers out, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so in the CIPs, if you remember going over these for our projects for the road capital, for 2024, this is on page 87 of your book. The transfer from the general fund is 550. We're currently at 500,000. We're requesting $50,000 more because I think we're pretty well underfunded on what we need to do for these road projects. I think we talked about some of the other neighboring cities at that point. We were
Yeah.
quite a bit lower than a lot of our neighboring cities, what they're transferring for roads, and
And the objective there is, the worst thing you can do is get behind on maintenance of roads.
Yeah.
Because once you get to a certain degree, you can never catch up, and then if you do, it's extremely expensive.
So has there been any thought, when that developer was talking about putting in that second development, they were talking about expanding or paving 189th? Because I know a lot of the people were concerned about that. What now is kind of like behind what Aggressive Hydraulics used to be, where you have to go off, kind of off-road in the dirt, this path, and then it winds up in the neighborhood. And those people were concerned about that 189th having to be repaved, or be paved, period. Is that, if that happens, where's that gonna come into here?
Well, our proposal on that now is to leave 189th as it is, and just use that as a designated service road for ingress and egress for emergency service vehicles. In order to, if that road were paved, the intersection of that road with Greenbrook is so bad that that intersection probably needs to be
Right.
relocated a good 150 yards south of there. And to do so would involve buying the front yard of an existing home and be terribly expensive. So, with the current accesses, here again, we're getting on Capstone again, but that would still give Capstone 3 major entrance and exit points.
Right.
Viking Boulevard to the north, 2 places, and then south on Sand Hill Parkway, with another proposed street that could come through any developments to the south, particularly Doug Osborne's, and tie in with that to give another southern exit point from there.
Well, Sand Hill Parkway, that's gonna be in between the two developments, correct? Is it, what is it? No, it can't be,
No,
because 65's to the west.
no.
All right, never mind, another day.
Do you wanna just touch on the equipment replacement,
Yeah, and then just real quick on the park capital, same thing there. It's, there's $100,000 that was part of that park capital improvement plan that transfers out of the general fund for that too. Then the other portion of the park improvement stuff, it comes from, park dedication fees, so. For the equipment replacement fund in both of the parks and the, street maintenance operation budget, there's a transfer out that's shown on there. In the Parks Department, it's 17,000, and in the, street maintenance budget, it's 135,000. Essentially what that does is we have a balance, set aside for future equipment replacement. Mike and I and the fire chiefs sit down each year and figure out where we're at with equipment, when stuff needs to be replaced. And we say, you know, we need to replace something for $100,000 10 years from now. Need to set aside $10,000 for the next 10 years. So we have that in an account. It's there when the time comes to purchase it. Every year we can extend that life of that piece of equipment out longer. That money just continues to build up for those pieces of equipment. Like the trailer we had earlier this year, it was originally on a 12-year replacement. We took 25 years to replace it, so we basically saved up enough money to buy it twice, and that money stays in that fund then. We've got a pretty healthy balance in there, and it builds up interest, and it's a great way to purchase equipment. As Mike alluded to, some cities have to bond for equipment, and East Bethel does a good job on how they plan for how this works, so. And then if you have any questions on any of the specific equipment in there, this is on page 90 of your budget, second to last page, I believe. We lay it out for 5 years. It's broken down for inspection, park, streets, the fire department, and then we do kind of some long-term planning just to see, to make sure some of those are a ways out. But each year we go through and update these and try and get the most accurate numbers for those. Currently, we're underfunding both of these. The fire department actually is too. We've got, like I said, we've got a pretty healthy balance that generates interest, and then every year we can extend out these purchases. There are some years when we have to actually replace stuff earlier. We try and avoid that whenever possible. It doesn't come up very often, but it does occur. But for 2024, we've got a John Deere mower. Standing here right now, I think that's going to be pushed back to at least 2025 because we just put a bunch of money into that. A skid steer, 2 skid steers basically. That's all we have for 2020 for next year planned.
That's a very smart way to budget.
Yeah, the city did a good job
Conservative,
planning that.
conservative, but it's smartly conservative.
Yep.
Good financial management.
A lot of the equipment's gone way up in price. I know the fire departments, some of their stuff has skyrocketed. Our plow trucks, we have one coming before the council here in the next month or two that you'll see. I think the prices are gonna be pretty high. Anything we buy now isn't gonna take delivery until, they're saying 2025, so 2 more years of saving up for it. But we'll go over that when that one comes to, but that's kinda how we plan. That's all designed to work on that stuff, so.
Yeah.
Anything else, Mike, you wanna touch on how that works?
Nope, I think you did a good
Didn't
job.
screw it up enough?
No. Yeah, Nate does a really good job putting this together and then assigning values and useful lives, and it's quite the accounting type logistical nightmare to do, but he does a good job putting it all together, and it kind of gets put together right in the summary form that's easy to understand, I think, so.
Yeah.
It takes into account some salvage money too, when we're looking at what we need to set aside, that's included in that, but those numbers can be all over the place sometimes when you sell stuff too. So.
Very good.
Anything else, you know where to reach me, anything, questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nate.
Thanks, Nate. You wanna get the
And-
finance, then I'll finish up.
And Mike's taking care of every other question, is that?
I think the only other, let's see, what sections have we got left here? Under civic events, there's only one expenditure in that category. It's for the $6,500. It's unchanged. That's the fireworks for Booster Days. Let's see, what else? The only other categories we haven't went over under the general fund is just your general government expenditures. So, again, what jumps off the page here is this 413% increase for the elections. Again, that's just because there's an election in 2024, so then we have to hire election judges, et cetera. So that number, it's every other year gets a jump like that. What other items? Within council, again, this is kind of where we capture the pay for the city council and the mayor, but we also capture expenditures related to the 2 watershed districts, so the Sunrise and the
Right.
Upper Rome.
I was gonna say that.
Yeah.
I didn't know we were making that
Yeah,
much
reflected
money.
in my account.
And so
Wondered where it
essentially,
was
as
going.
those get approved,
Is that
then
per
we
piece?
plug them right into your budget. And then also within your category, you've got Alexander House, mediation services.
Right.
it's all kind of outlined within, the narrative there.
Do we ever use that mediation services?
No, we
We
never,
just
we've
put the
been
money in.
we've been recommended twice to use it. But again, in order to have mediation, you have to have both parties agree, and in both cases, we didn't have agreement on both parties, so. Yeah, I thought you might have a question when that budget's 82,000 and your combined salaries are 29, so we
Yeah,
figured there'd be some questions on that. One of the other things on expenditures on that is what we pay the League of Minnesota Cities in dues, which is about $12,000 or $13,000. But, you can see we more than recovered that expenditure when we had, a settlement case here recently.
What's the risk management?
Yep, so risk management is all your property and liability insurance. So all the property within the city, and then all your vehicles, and then just general liability insurance.
All right, is it an umbrella or is it an actual broke down into separate?
Yep, it's broke down into all those different categories, yep. And
Okay,
again, that's just, again, the numbers just derived from what we actually spent in actuals, but there is probably, it's probably a 12-page kind of application that I fill out annually, and then it kind of kicks out what our premiums are gonna be, so.
I've got a whole lot of questions. So if you guys are done, this will take about 5 hours. No, I'm kidding. But who negotiates the Minnesota Public Employees Association union contract?
That is done by city staff and then brought to city council in work meetings. We present what the offers and counter offers were and have those approved by city council. Get directions from council to go back and follow up until there's an agreement reached.
Is there any provision, ordinance, otherwise, where whatever is negotiated with the unionized employee automatically becomes the increase for non-union employees?
That's not written
just
anywhere.
practice.
It's been established practice
It's
is the way
established
that's.
practice, okay. Who are the members of the Finance Committee in June of 2022?
June of 2022 would have been Steve Voss and Wanda McLaren, I believe.
Okay. Okay, what drives the 3% increase in the 2015 A sewer bonds? I found the bonds interesting because normally you think of amortization as being level,
Yep.
and then the
That's-
amounts of interest and principal changes, but the total
Yep, so
stays
essentially
level.
the way that was set up is we took
It's an
all-
escalating,
Yep,
Yeah.
we took
Huh.
all the bond payments and
Weird.
interest payments over the life of the bond, and then said, okay, what's a reasonable amount to raise the levy in order to cash flow the bonds through their entire existence, and that was that 2.97%, so. So it kind of fluctuates a little bit, the bond payments fluctuate, but in order to cash flow it for the life of the bond, you raise it 3% each year.
wasn't that originally 15% and then the 2.9 per year?
That was back on those escalation of those SAC unit designations. They were increased like 17% a year. They went like from a small number like 16 to the last year on that reserve capacity loan to about 900 units, but those increased at an annual rate of 17% a year, and the 2.9, I believe, is the interest rate we pay on that.
I'll have to go back and look, cause that's not what I'm thinking. I know when we were redoing the bonds that we had to do, we ended up doing a 15% one-time increase, and then we said we would cap it at, what, 2.9% or something? I'll go back and find the
I
papers.
think, Bob, and you can go back and look and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the 15% was a levy increase one year when we started having to pay
Yes,
the principal in addition to the interest. For the first 4 years, we just paid interest on the bonds.
right.
In that fifth year, then the principal kicked in, so that's what created that huge increase in the levy amount, but we set that as our goal to hopefully never let the levy increase exceed 3% going forward.
I think what Bob's referring to is this year right here, and it's back to 2012 to 2013, right? So essentially
Yep.
from 13 to 14, that's when the levy essentially kicked in for those bonds.
Yeah, Yeah,
And
that's
then we raised-
15%.
We raised, it, you know, in 2014, the aggregate increase for the levy was 15.1%. And then as you can see, we've kind of averaged 1.9% thereafter.
All right, well, I'm just taking the dust off my brain cells here.
Yep.
What is a para coordinated plan?
Yep, so
What does that mean?
Para is the retirement plan that
Yeah,
each employee is mandated to participate in, so
That's
it's.
the Public Employees Retirement Association?
Correct, yep.
Yeah. So what else is it? Is that it? That's the whole definition right there?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
What is deferred compensation?
Yep, deferred compensation is a voluntary plan that the employee can set aside pre-tax dollars into their own individualized 457B plan. So, again, they can take their own dollars.
It's like an public employees Roth or IRA kind of
Yeah,
thing?
it's like the private sector's, 401K. So one thing with the city here is they match up to $2,000. So. So if the employee puts in $2,000, the city puts in $2,000.
Okay, I'm assuming when you did the administration part of the budget, that you were presuming that Mr. Davis would be the city administrator in 2024 at what his salary would be then. What is that? Step 2,000, level 94? What is that? What is that?
There are,
One,
You ran out of
Yeah,
steps.
yeah.
I think, just to clarify, the 3.5% has been put on everybody's salary. So
Yeah.
Jack's, mine, all non-union employees have that 3.5% COLA increase as well. And that's, like we had mentioned, it's just been practice.
Okay, I was just checking to,
Yep.
that's what the assumption was.
So if Aaron is made community development director, does he go to a salaried position?
yes.
Correct.
And then no more hours? All right, I'm just
And
curious.
so, yeah, within your budget, I had to kind of estimate what that was gonna be, right? Since that's kind of undefined at this
Okay.
Yeah.
point, so.
You gotta put some number
I
in
had
there,
to
so
put
you.
some number in there.
And,
Yep.
and Bob, that's the way we're gonna get that extra work out of him.
Okay, I'll lay off of the administration
So,
part, but what's with the 43% increase in cost of prosecution services in the last 7 months of 2024? Under legal,
let's take a look.
it goes up enormously. What,
My assumption would be that there wasn't any prosecution going on during COVID for the last 2 years, and now anything that's been in holding is now entering the court system, so our attorneys have to work.
you just decided to start now?
No.
Because I feel like some of our cases are like 4 or 5 years old that are still pending, and that,
You really think that's what it is? What is this from your Cambridge City Council? You going through it up there too? Same kind of thing?
no, Cambridge handles code enforcement a little different than East Bethel does,
Oh,
so.
okay. Any better?
He said prosecution.
It's okay
I-
to say.
Yes,
Kevin?
we do abatements if
Well, maybe we should
Yeah,
do it that
yeah.
way.
What exactly are you looking at there and what page?
Well, I don't know what page. It's under legal, wherever legal
Legal
is.
starts on 19.
Yeah, I'm looking on my computer, so I have to scroll to places. 19.
And that's where, yeah, that's where.
But anyway, on the budget, it shows in the last 5 months of the year, last 7 months of the year, I think it starts June 1st.
Oh, on 2023?
Where the hell is
Is
it?
that the one?
This one is for, okay, this one is for 5 months
Yeah,
and this one is
yeah.
for 7
Yeah.
months.
It's 6/1/24 to 12/31. It goes from 51,000 to 73,000.
Right, one of them is just for
Is
5
it,
months.
is it just the month difference?
Yeah, month
Yeah.
difference,
Oh,
but there is
okay.
also an escalator in there too, cause they're charging more, and that's just based upon what
See,
their contract is.
that was a trick question. You
Yeah.
passed. Anyway,
But yeah, I don't know why they separated out by 5 months and 7 months.
The
That's-
reason is that's the anniversary of their
Okay,
contract.
just an anniversary of their contract, yeah.
when is the last time we did an RFP for illegal services, by the way?
We did it back in 2021.
2021?
Yeah. They were awarded a 5-year contract.
one thing, if we can just go back to the matrix, the payroll matrix here, let me bring it up here quick. So each of our employees are assigned a grade
Yep.
within our grade matrix, depending upon, you know, skill set and demands of the job. And this is the matrix then that is adjusted to 3.5%.
Mm-hmm.
So. And one of the reasons why that is done is it's gonna come in later this year into play is this item called pay equity from the state of Minnesota. So you have a uniformed way of paying people and ensuring that based upon, I guess.
Basically males and females is what
Correct,
it
yeah.
comes from.
That's exactly what we send into the state, you know.
Yeah.
And then they tell us if we're compliant based on this matrix.
Okay. What is Civic Web Hosting? What is that?
That's the hosting for our city website.
Oh, that's it?
Yeah.
City
Oh,
website, yeah.
Bear with me a moment. What are the special assessments that are under 2015A bond? What are those?
Those are for the water and sewer project. There was a special assessment for the trunk sewer fee. So each one of those parcels within the business district were assigned a special assessment.
They're assigned a trunk charge, which in addition to the SAC fee is $11,500.
Okay. Thank you. Why is the resource capacity loan payment lower in 2024 than in 2023?
Yeah, so that one is all just a big estimate at this point. It all depends on if we actually reach
The
that-
$2 million
The $2
cap?
million dollars. So
Okay.
I think in my projection there is that we actually don't reach our quota for SAC units during 2023.
Okay.
And therefore, the loan actually kicks in 2024, and the loan payment is gonna be lower. So, and again, that's all gonna be kind of figured out within the next few months, depending upon if we, you know, we meet the SAC quota. And I can kind of bring that up.
We're not actually paying on the loan now, are we?
We're paying interest on the loan.
Paying
essentially.
interest on it,
Yep.
okay.
But it actually starts to kick in principal and interest in
Principal and interest,
2024 if we don't meet this year's SAC quota. Yep.
Okay, that's the thing referred to just as RCL, it's the reserve capacity loan. And it's based on the amount, as I understand it, that we fell short of the projections we were supposed to have for sewage
Sewer
fees,
connection.
connections and all
Yep,
that, yeah.
exactly.
Okay, one last question. What is PAYGO?
Yeah, okay. So, within your budget, there's also TIF districts. So these are
Yeah,
districts that are set up for.
Tax increment financing,
Yep,
yep.
various items to spur development. And the PAYGO is essentially the city gets paid, just like their tax settlement, they get paid twice a year through tax increment. So we take in, we'll say $100,000, and we then turn around and pay, which is then the pay-as-you-go, the PAYGO, back to the developer for those qualified costs in order to spur that development. So again, it's just one of those things that the city takes in. We hold 10% of it for administration costs, and then we pay out the rest. So,
Thank you.
yep.
I thought Aggressive Hydraulics paid off that TIF.
They paid off their first one, now they're on their second one. They used that for their second expansion.
Yeah.
But they paid off their first year as a 9-year note, they paid it off in 7 years.
Yep. So currently, we have 4 different TIF districts that are still active. We have TIF 1-2, which is gonna be your East Bethel Village Apartments, TIF 1-3, which is the Viking Preserve, TIF 1-4 is Trident, the senior living, and then the TIF 1-5 is that Aggressive Hydraulics expansion. So all these are kind of just in the very infancy of actually their pay-as-you-goes are starting. So as I actually have some actuals to pin back, your budget numbers will get more and more accurate. But we really kind of go off the TIF plan and the the original numbers in the TIF plan to kind of set those.
Thank you, Mike.
Yep.
Thank you, Jack. Thank you, Aaron. Thank you, Nate. You guys got any other questions for these gentlemen?
I move to adjourn.
Before we adjourn, or do you want to continue this discussion on any of the other items that are in this budget book? We haven't touched on those, like the enterprise funds, particularly the bond payouts on the 214, 215 bonds. There's a few more things you want to do this. Are you satisfied enough that we can continue this at the next work meeting and finish it up, or do you want to have another meeting, make it part of a council meeting to review the remaining items?
I should make it part of the council meeting. I don't know what a special meeting is needed for.
I don't think we need to have a special
No.
meeting, just in,
But we could do it at the next work meeting if you want to do that in August.
yeah, I think we should keep the topic in front of us.
Okay.
It's about the most important thing we do
Yeah.
when you get down to it.
One last thing I'd like to note is the use of the fund balance. In this current budget model, I put a 0 in for the use of fund balance. In 2023, we used 145,000 in order to balance the 2023 budget. So just one thing to keep in mind is if and how much of the fund balance we'd like to use in order to lower, I guess, the levy.
Well, what are we at now for percentage?
Yep. So,
55, right?
yep.
Is that what you're projecting?
Yep, so we're at 55 currently, but again, we're moving the goalposts a little bit here because as you increase expenditures now in 2024, then your requirements for fund balance go up, right?
Yeah.
So I'm projecting, again, from the end of 2022, which is an audited figure, we're saying that $3.6 million. We're gonna use 145,000 in 2023, so that'll leave us about 3.5 million. So we'll be at 52.78. The city council policy, again, is to keep at least 40%.
Right.
But from practice, right, because we only get paid twice a year, we like to keep it at that 50%
Right.
mark. So then how much can we use in order to still be at 50? The quick calculation's about 185,000. Now, again, there's a lot of back and forth last year is to say, okay, should we use all of it in 1 year? Should we split it in half? Should we use 85,000? It's just something to kind of keep in mind as we kind of refine this budget. How much of that surplus do you want to use?
Well, years ago, we used to kind of use it as a tin can theory of just putting money on the side so we know we had something there.
Well, and another thing to consider there too, and hopefully we'll be getting some more information soon. If there's certain projects that we may want to participate in, like some of this broadband development for matching grants, we have until December 11th, I believe, to make that decision. But it's one thing that we need to keep discussing is that's another source we can use to lower that levy increase.
Are there any grants out there available to do that, Aaron?
There are, but.
For, what were you talking about, high-speed broadband
Yeah, fiber optic,
and fiber optics?
Yeah.
I had a great memory for 10 years ago, but don't ask me about it 5 minutes ago.
The
So-
legislature just dumped a bunch of money into a fund that can be applied for connecting rural areas. I don't know if
Yeah.
it's county-based, or if it's local unit government-based, or if
Right.
it's private industry-based. I guess we could research that, or Jack might know through his EDA discussions.
there, like Aaron said, the state's contributing more money, the federal government is. The county has a fund too, where we can get grants up to $150,000, but it's a dollar for dollar match. Most all these are gonna be somewhat similar to that. We have had talks with Midco about 3 or 4 projects that we could probably cooperate with them in, but they're not gonna do these projects because they say, okay, it's not feasible for us to do it unless we get some assistance to supplement part of these costs. The biggest problem in that is us being eligible for them is we can't really give them any money because we don't have any ownership of the system then. So we're trying to find ways. Columbus did a project where they cooperated with Midco and had some special provisions that exempted them from that. We're looking into that to see if that's feasible. But that's something that's gonna be discussed more, is in the next couple of months, because we'll have to make some type of decision by December of this year on what we can do with at least the county's grant funds. But broadband grant monies, I think, are gonna be one of the few grant funds that are gonna be available that we may have access to. One of the other problems up until now was that we weren't eligible for them because they were mostly designed for outstate cities and counties. Metro areas weren't eligible, so we're working through some of those things to see what we can take advantage of.
Mike, is there any matrix or layout sheet for monies taken in or donated to the EDA versus what's been paid out? Or some kind of a balance sheet that says what, I mean, cause what, I don't, what was it, 135,000 or? Isn't that
Yeah.
what they're budgeted now?
Yeah.
What, I'm looking to see what is that money spent on, because at 135,000 a year, that's a lot of money.
Right.
And what,
But
you know, we
mainly-
didn't do the drone.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
definitely an accounting of all the money spent for the last how many years. It just depends on how much you wanna
And
have presented to you, I guess. But yeah, I can provide you any year's EDA activity that you would like, so.
And the bulk of that is a transfer back to the general fund to pay for staffing. The one thing that we paid for a project was that broadband study that was done a couple years ago. But then we turned around and requested the county reimburse us for those funds because they copied a lot of our report in the development of theirs. And they did, they paid us $59,000, which was essentially the cost of that report.
Oh, you shook another cobweb. Are you aware of a study, Aaron, that was done here by 80 Voltage? Yeah, you were here. We paid 43,000 for it. I was just kind of going through it over the weekend. But we hired a firm, 80 Voltage, to come in, and they did surveys and studies. And is there a copy of that available, Jack?
Yeah, I can get you a copy of it.
Because it kind of went hand in hand with the comp plan. I mean, it was good enough. We went and showed it to the old folks one time for lunch, and because when we first came in, Heidi and Richard and I, we had no idea. And so the city was looking, all right, we got this project, no means to pay for it. How are we going to arrange things here? And it was an excellent study. I just too bad we didn't use it. All right, no more shake-up cobwebs.
And I think one thing that Jack and I would like to emphasize, this is a lot of information, a lot of pages to go through. If you have any questions at all, don't be afraid to just contact Jack or I, and we can kind of go through it on an individual basis as well, so.
We promise to bother you relentlessly for the
Okay,
next
sounds
3
good.
months.
Very good.
No, thank you all. I know it's been a long day for all of you, so we do appreciate your patience with us and answering the questions.
Well, and again, like Mike said, if anybody wants to drop by and just sit down and go over all of it or any part of it, we'll go into any detail level you want to go into.
Yeah.
Well, you don't know unless you
appreciated.
ask questions.
Yep.
Fair
It's
enough.
appreciated. Just want you to know that. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none heard.